How's it going, man?
What's up?
How you doing?
I found out that we were recording 1 hour ago, which is 4 hours earlier than I started drinking. So,
Nice.
see what happens.
I invited Phil on and my other buddy Mark, who are the only two car guys that I know personally, so they may join and hang out. What's up, Brian?
Hey, how's it going?
So Connor was saying this will be the last one, I think. I'm gonna hesitate to say that at the start. I'll wait until we actually wrap it up and say that that's the last one because there's a good chance. I feel like there's a good chance we could end up not getting through all the stuff, but who knows? I just know that our nature.
Granted, we take our time getting through the material. There's really not a lot left to cover here. From what I hear, no one wants to work anymore.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I mean, I don't want to work. If I could be retired
I
right
was
now.
surprised at the no one wants to work anymore rhetoric because I was like, when did people want to work before?
Right?
Yeah.
When was that something that was a reality?
When was the time that you didn't have to coerce us with like the threat of homelessness and starving and whatnot?
I mean, people want to do some work, but it's not like work for other people, you know?
Exactly.
Like I've been working on a project all day, but it's just what I want to be doing, not actual work.
Oh yeah, I have like a million other things that I could be doing. So many little projects that I would love to be working on, but when over 50% of my waking life goes to a job, I can't make the time.
What's up, Mark? What's going on, Phil?
Bill that I'm hearing.
Hey, buddy. Sorry about the hug.
Yeah, I was going to say the cool thing about being on call with you is that you can't hug me even if you want to.
Very true. That's all right, man. I made up for it. Remember, I donated to Philly Bail Fund.
A lot of good that does me in Pittsburgh.
You suggested it.
Okay, I accept that. The Blues Brothers Antifa shirt.
What'd you say, dude?
Is that a Blues Brothers Antifa hoodie?
Yes, it is. Fuck Illinois Nazis.
Oh, nice. I didn't see that.
How's the van going, man?
Fun.
Nice.
No, that was a genuine question.
I thought you said fun. You said which one?
Yes.
Oh, the one you and Tom are working on.
Well, once it's a roller, I'm just going to ship it back here to Pittsburgh to actually start getting it ready.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's a hell of a trip from Pittsburgh, especially all your bridges fucking collapsing out there.
Yeah, I don't want to risk driving it over anything because who knows if I'll make it.
Don't worry, Biden's there to save you, though.
No, he said he was going to fix it. I'm really looking forward to, him finally doing literally anything.
I like that the solution is like a $1.6 billion package when the last $2.4 billion package went to the police. It got diverted from fixing the bridges to the state police. And their plan is another smaller package in the same way. So it's like, all right, cool.
Don't worry, man. We're out of a war, and we had a larger military budget this year. Because fuck
the
it.
peace dividend is going to kick in any minute now.
We had to prepare to defend fascists in the Ukraine, so.
And, lose all those jets in the South China Sea.
What?
That F-35 crashed in the South China Sea, and they've wrecked like 3 boats trying to recover it from the bottom of the ocean.
Hilarious. Well, I didn't know that. That's even better.
As far as everybody's names, this is something I'm probably gonna have to watch. I know Mark very well, so I'll try not to use your last name because that's probably a really good idea. I just realized that I did it in this chat, which is probably not a big deal, but
I mean, I will cut anything and everything,
Hold on, where is it? I gotta write it down. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just curious about who we're talking to.
My social security number is
Mark Sanchez.
If you guys wanted, we can then do car updates if you want to just start with that.
Yeah, we could do that. I think I'm going to be stuck on a blue screen this time, guys. Sorry. That sucks, but whatever.
I mean, you sound fine.
Yeah,
We
could do that. Yeah, let's do car updates, but let's try and keep them somewhat brief because I do have a lot of shit. Obviously, I always do, so.
I know Mark's got a fun car update on his not that it is pertaining to yours, but we both have shit we got to do on ours.
I was going to ask, are both of your car updates going to be Miatas?
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
I'm a former Miata owner, so I'm jazzed about that.
I got an NA if you want to buy one. Real cheap. I'd love to sell it to a comrade.
I am thinking of selling my Subaru, but I was thinking of buying a hybrid instead, but we can get to that, you know.
Okay.
The Toyota RAV4, the new one's the fastest Toyota they make. mean-
Yeah, I think I heard that. Yeah, for like 0 to 60 or what?
Yeah, there's 0 to 60 on the Toyota RAV4 hybrid is. I mean, I don't count the BMW that they're releasing as a Toyota. So when you don't count that, yeah, it's the fastest one. I think the 0 to 60 is like, I don't know, 5 seconds or something.
Actually bothered to
pretty
look at my insurance policy this weekend, and I'm thinking about selling several things.
Yeah, I just paid mine too.
I did not realize how many things I still had insured.
I had a bonus from work come in, and it was like come in and then went right out for insurance stuff.
I just, like, as a rule, make more money than I spend, so I don't ever pay attention to how much I make or how much I spend. And
Yeah,
I had
it's
to, like,
dangerous.
well, I mean, because of the way my anxiety works, it's actually beneficial because the longer I don't look at my bank account, the more I assume I have spent and the more I get paranoid and stop spending money. It's whatever. Good shirt.
Yeah. Dude, this is like my favorite shirt ever. I love it.
What is it?
Street Fight,
Oh, nice.
the anvil there.
That is pretty cool.
It is a solid shirt.
My Street Fight shirt is one of my best fitting shirts. I wear it like all the fucking time.
Yeah, they're fucking quality shirts. I think they're union made and all that. So
Oh, nice.
I should get one of those,
Yeah.
especially if they're coming back to Denver again. That reminds me though that what was it? Brian was talking about all the like subscription services that he signed up for and like how much he spends on like HBO Max and whatever. It's like I don't want to look at how much I spend on all those things.
yeah, it adds up, and you're just like, oh, I have So I use one of those budgeting apps, which are actually pretty good, but I have let mine lapse for a few months, and I'm just like, I have hundreds of transactions that I need to put into categories. I'm just like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But
That
yeah,
sounds terrible.
it is when you let it lapse. But like for a long time, I was really good about it, and it really helped me be a lot less paranoid about money. Because like when I wasn't tracking shit, I was just like, I'm broke. I'm out. I'm totally broke. And you know, my partner keeps telling me like, you're absolutely not broke. Please, like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I am very poor. I am next to homelessness. And she's like, no, just look at where your money goes and you'll understand that you're fine. And then I did, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Well, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like there's, especially on the left, there's like two kind of people. There's like, I was at like a punk show this weekend, and those dudes are actually on the line of being like impoverished, and they just don't ever worry about money. And then there's the people that read like a lot of like theory, and they're like constantly scared capitalism is going to crush them every day.
I feel like it really does make it so much worse because I'm just like, oh, I realize that like I'm precarious as shit. They could fire me tomorrow, and that's that.
Yep,
Like other
exactly.
people don't understand. They're like, oh, I'll be fine. I'm like, where you? What? What do you mean fine?
None of this will be fine.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, in your case, yeah.
I mean, I think all of us can work with our hands. I think we will be all right. Like,
My house
Yeah.
is paid off. I'll be fine.
Yeah, that is a fucking win.
Yeah, capitalism sucked my fucking dick. I beat it. Now I'm just about helping my comrades. I obviously didn't beat it, but like, you know, for my own personal thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's far less onerous when you're not worried about like having a place to live.
Yeah, I'm just worried about whether or not I can rebuild whatever dumb vehicle I've recently purchased.
Speaking about being terrible with money, someone just posted a 240 SX for sale. It's a
Ooh.
stick shift. They want 10 grand for it. It looks super clean. It's got so many parts. It's an NA SR25, I think.
Whoa, what? Is it an SR20? That's like the common swap for 240s.
It might be a 20. I can't tell. All they have is a picture of the fucking valve cover.
It's probably.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, it's a K24D.
Oh, that's the norm. Well, hold on. Is it a KAT or is it just a
No.
KA?
No, just a KA24.
10 grand, these motherfuckers.
Bro,
Yeah,
that's
that's what
a
I'm
good
saying.
price,
I don't give a
honestly.
fuck.
Like compared to the other shit I see.
No, not for a KA.
Bro.
Not for
I
a
don't
KA.
give a fuck,
Look,
man. I will never pay 10 grand for a 240. Like, it just,
I would.
I couldn't bring myself to do it.
I've never felt more alienated during car talk.
This is what it is to feel like Mike when we're all talking about cars.
Yeah, this is all the same to me.
I am suddenly on the same page as Mike.
I mean, Mike, you're sitting on a gem over there. Your car is going to run forever because you don't fuck with it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I got 180
that's
on it
true.
now.
Hey, there it goes.
Hey, there's that pretty face.
What's going on, Mark?
You can all look into my mess of a basement.
Sweet.
Wait, so I know the one guy's working on a van, and the other guy clearly has a 350. What's everybody?
We were talking about somebody found a 240 for sale.
Oh, for like how much?
10 grand.
Yeah, fuck that.
I mean, in this market, in this economy, that's a fucking steal.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it isn't. I refuse to concede that.
No, it probably is ridiculous.
Dude, I will sell you an NA Miata for $2,000. It runs.
The sudden price increase in cars has turned me into a boomer in 6 months. Like $3 grand for this shit box? Absolutely not. As to where like a year ago it was $500 and I was still reluctant.
I was just poking around online and I saw a Ford Festiva from like 1992 for like $5,000.
What the fuck?
That's insane.
Now, granted, it was in good shape, but still, like, no Ford Festiva is worth that much. Like,
It was in good shape because no one ever wanted to drive a Ford Festiva.
Yeah.
So I'll make the opposite argument, just for like devil's advocate, right? That car probably gets almost 50 miles to the gallon. What car can you buy that it was probably reasonably reliable that gets 50 miles to the gallon that isn't a hybrid?
I'm sorry, I measure things in miles per gallon.
I've never seen you smile.
I don't do it. Everything I own gets 0 miles to the gallon. That's how I measure them.
All right. Well, on that note, let's start with our updates and let's try and do, I don't know, regular alphabetical order, which I think would put Brandon, Bryant. I'm going to have to do the ABCs real quick. P in front of M or what?
MNOP.
M then P.
Okay. So then, then we'll do Mark here and then Phil and then Zach, you're last as usual.
Sweet. Love it.
So Brandon, what do you got?
Oh, easy. I didn't do anything to anything this week. I just worked a lot.
Okay. Fair enough. That's capitalism, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been working a lot because it's somehow good for my mental health, but it is what it is. I've done no car things.
All right, moving along.
Yeah.
I haven't done a whole lot of car stuff myself either, other than editing the podcast and driving a lot. I went and saw my family for my dad's birthday, and my Subaru still has that fuel leak that I haven't fixed, and on my last tank it got 16 miles per gallon. So
But how many smiles per gallon?
negative smiles per gallon, because I fucking hate that car right now.
That's usually how that goes. When there's a problem, it goes down.
Yeah,
I hate that you have a fuel leak and still get better gas mileage than everything I own.
yeah, and it's got snow tires on it too. That's probably not helping the mileage.
Fuck you.
So you're telling me a car that was built by Chevy, Subaru, and partially by Saab isn't reliable and wonderful to drive all the time?
I mean, like a real Chevrolet, it runs poorly longer than most cars run at all.
Oh, that's fine.
So, yeah, it has some problems that I can maybe fix, or I might ditch it and get a hybrid, because one of the things I've realized is commuting is making me insane, and I hate it. I moved, in the last year, and I have a lot longer commute, and it fucking sucks. And I'm thinking of getting something that gets good mileage and is a little bit more comfortable and, worry free. So maybe a hybrid of some kind, but we'll see. I haven't pulled the trigger on that. But
I feel like this is where I should remind everyone that my willingness to buy like a more fuel efficient vehicle, it opened the gateway to me somehow owning a 74 Ford. I just had to open my mind to owning another vehicle, and then suddenly I forgot about fuel efficiency and bought something I like. So like, just be wary of that slippery slope.
Well, I mean, it does get better mileage, right? It's got a 6, and everything else has a V8, right?
I just wrote down my mileage the other day, so when I got gas, so I'll let you know in a week.
I was going to say, is it going to be one number or two?
It's going to be one.
I've been doing a lot of city driving, so probably one.
Fair.
I'm trying to be optimistic and think maybe I'm getting like 12 or 13.
Wow. Well, you should definitely put a turbo on it. That will make it much better.
A turbo will come after an overdrive transmission and longer highway gears.
That makes sense.
Fair enough. Well, I guess that'd be me then. I'm still having various issues with the Z. I went to the shop and the idle is much better because they added a hose somewhere because the cams are a bitch and they didn't decide to include instructions about that. But anyway, some digging, we found a hose we can add, which helped fix the idle, but it still does kind of rev up randomly and shit. So it's going back to the tuner for the 4th time now, hoping for the best. So,
and you have a 350, right, with the VQ engine?
Yep. So I hope they find something because, like, it's a pain in the ass. Like, it works. It does work, but, like, something is wrong. And we've pretty much gone through everything mechanical we can think of. So it's going to have to go back to the tuner. And, that's where we're at. So just a pain in the ass. So that's where that's at. And then I did have to move all my rear interior parts to my storage unit, and they are taking up a lot of space. So I'm committing here on the air. I'm going to put my interior back this spring. No more delays.
Nice.
It's been years, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for real.
I'm going to stop drinking.
Bro, what about that weight savings though, dude?
I swear to God, it is like maybe 10 pounds of interior parts. And I was just like, the whole reason I took it out was never about weight. It was to fit more wheels and tires for a drift event. And I did not fit more wheels and tires. So it was fucking pointless.
All right, fair enough.
So you're saying a 350Z is not a good pickup truck?
Correct. It is not.
Me shocked.
Yeah. In that instance, to go to that drift event, I did tie the wheels up on the roof and drove for many hours. It worked. It was sketchy, but it worked. I'm going to hopefully not have to do that anymore. But
I would just like to interject here that as a van owner, I've never had to tie tires to the roof.
Noted.
There's a guy we do autocross with that has a trailer for his Miata. So he pulls
No plates.
And like the smallest trailer tires that I've ever seen, I think they might be like 8s. Like
Definitely 8s.
And he was pulling it on the highway, which means that tire was doing, I don't know, like 12,000 RPMs. Came in and the wheel bearings, like I put my hand near them.
Smoking hot.
God.
Smoking.
Jesus.
Let's go, Felix.
Yeah, that dude rocks. He's a good dude, but yeah.
I was going to say, is that like your version of Let's Go Brandon or something that I missed the joke?
No.
Never mind.
Oh, man.
I can't believe he blew up his Miata at the last event.
I fucking felt terrible for that guy.
Based on what I've heard, I can't believe his Miata made it to the last event.
He is the guy that like believes that it's going to work out no matter what. And he's not a half bad mechanic, but like he thinks that the fix that he just buggered together is going to work forever. And it's like his belief in those 8-inch tires not blowing up. he believed that his Miata wasn't going to either.
That's cool. He's going to get that BMW working, and then that will be the track car.
Oh my God. He bought a BMW that somebody flipped at an event.
Nice.
Is our entire podcast about why if you want your car to run, you shouldn't be a car person?
Seems like it.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, yeah,
pretty
that's
much.
like, these are horror stories. These car updates are horror stories.
Yeah, but nothing we own runs.
That's what I'm saying. It's horror stories. Take them away.
Everyone on our show currently has a car that is in some way blown up.
Hey, both of my Miatas are running to various degrees.
My Miata runs like a top.
Yeah.
Damn.
Hey, and if I put the battery back in my MR2, it would start right now until the cooling system overheated. So
What MR2 is it?
that's
Weird.
an 86.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
If I put new rear wheels on my Cutlass and like cross my fingers really hard, I could drive it around.
Well, anyway, Mark, I think let's hear what you got going.
This week was a lot of shoveling out neighbors' cars, but we did. I think it was last weekend or the weekend before we did suspension. We put Coney Yellows on my buddy's Mazda Speed 3.
Oh, nice.
That was pretty cool because that was like a little bit of a learning experience because I'm going to be doing that to my autocross Miata when it's done being cold and snowy outside. So have plans for Coney's front and rear. Probably do like a new sway bar on the front and those like sway bar blocks, and have some
Pads and rotors we got to do on your car.
Yeah, pads and rotors, just some other little stuff. Because real excited about autocross starting up in April, and want to try to get all that together well beforehand so we can do some like test and tune kind of stuff. But besides that, not too much going on. Just
Some fun plans, though.
yeah, and looking forward to all the snow going away. Try to get the motorcycles back out on the road. Right now, we're just battery tender and watching them be cold in the garage.
Yeah.
Are you still selling the one
The Honda, I really
Honda?
should. I don't ride it as much. Like, it's a great bike. I've definitely put less than 1,000 miles on it. But whereas like I probably put 5,000 on the Kawasaki just last summer alone.
What's the Honda?
I have a NT700V. It's like a sport tourer. So little 5-speed shaft drive sports tourer. It's a great bike. I got it with the idea that my wife was like, I like going on motorcycle rides with you, but she didn't feel so comfortable on the my Kawasaki is just like a Ninja 500. So like it's not the best 2-up motorcycle. So I got the sport tourer and we did like one long trip all around like Jersey Shore. And I think that's the last time she's been on it. That was 2 summers ago at this point. But yeah, it's a great bike. Going to trim down the stable and just focus more on just like actual riding this year.
Also bicycle riding.
Yeah, also bicycle riding. Also just more time autocrossing and less time repairing cars, hopefully, this year.
Yeah, we set up like 3 cars.
We set up multiple cars last season.
Yeah, in the last couple of years. And then I also had to do, so I do all my work at Mark's house. So anytime I'm working on a car, he's working on a car and vice versa. So I also had a lot of my fiance's car needed a bunch of work last year. So we did a bunch of work on that. And then all the other cars that you own too, we did suspension on your Lancer. Like
I was going to do the fronts on that.
We need to do the fronts on that.
And Highway 95 is just destroying the suspension on that car. PA needs to use their money for roads and not cops.
What?
Maybe
Oh,
my
I
suspension
can
wouldn't be
verify.
broken.
Listen, are you done, Mark? Because I'm going to go on a
Oh, yeah,
PPA rant.
Go for it.
My fucking car thing this week was I got my snow tires on recently. Like my car's my 2 Miatas. The 2000 is like the actual nice car. I found a 2000 Miata with like 60,000 miles on it.
Sweet.
Yeah,
That's NB, right?
yeah, it's an NB.
Okay.
Yep. So it's got the same motor, but with like slightly more. It's like a 9.5-to-1 compression instead of a 9, something like that. So a little bit more horsepower. Better, but all around way better.
Now, when you say a little bit more, that's like what, 75, 80?
The wheels, actually, yes. Whatever, man. It's coaster car. But so I got my shit inspected because I got like 2 parking tickets, or I 2 inspection tickets. But I barely ever drive the thing. I got a work van. But just trying to pay the motherfucking PPA has been the most goddamn infuriating thing in my life. Like,
what is the PPA?
Oh, so
Philadelphia
PPA.
Parking Authority.
Oh,
Yeah, he's in Pittsburgh and he fucking knows this.
I mean, I lived in Philly for 8 years, right?
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. So,
Oh, yeah.
you've had your fair share of dealing with them. But yeah, so here's a real fucked up thing about the PPA is that all the like fines that they go to Harrisburg. So it's literally wealth extraction from the city to fund bullshit like Republican state
That just goes to
politics
the
shit.
state general fund?
State general fund does not go to, I don't know, Philly roads. It's infuriating. Like,
That seems so wrong. That's fucking wild.
I have
Yeah.
questions about that because the PPA is a private entity.
yes, and the PPA is a private entity.
So they're
it's the
going
most
for
Republican
profit.
thing ever. They invented a private police force to extract wealth and give it to like the Republicans in the state Senate.
nice.
Yeah, it's great. I love
That
it.
has worked out to my advantage because because the PPA is privately owned, they can't sick the police on you as easily as if they were an actual like.
Yeah,
So I owe them hundreds of dollars, and I'm just never going to pay it.
God bless you. Yes, that is the correct answer.
Yeah,
Fuck the PPA.
I don't own the car that got all those tickets anymore. Fuck them.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck those people.
Be careful with that though, because that stuff can go to collections and fuck you later.
Oh, I'm sorry. You missed the memo where I don't give a fuck about my credit.
I figured. Yeah, I've gotten enough collection calls for tickets and shit that I'm like, all right, happens every 6 months or every year. At some point, I'll get some phone call. We're a debt collector collecting, and I'm like, for tickets I didn't even know I had. I'm like, these motherfuckers, man. I feel like they just make them up half the time. I'm like, come on, I didn't know nothing. What are you talking about? Hate it, fucking hate it.
They were making them up.
Some expert advice here. If you're constantly getting calls from collection agencies, stop paying your phone bill.
Modern problems, modern solutions.
I've literally done this. It took them years to find me again.
Okay, well, shit, that's interesting.
No, I did go completely without a phone for 6 months to a year. I don't remember. But I mean, like, if you're willing to do that, you're good.
Well, that's like the people who just leave the country instead of paying like their student loans, which I fully support.
Great
Like,
Yeah. I kind of wish that I had student loans so I could do that.
You don't need student loans to leave the country. This is a shithole place. Just give on it.
cool. So that's it. Fuck the PPA. That's my car update.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
a bunch
confirm.
of fucking assholes.
Yeah.
Is that me? Oh, wait. Mike, you got car stuff sometimes? You got anything?
My
Anything
only
for us
car
this week?
update, I think I already said on a previous episode to you guys, but I don't think I told Mark and Phil. You guys were the ones helping me in the group chat to like try and diagnose my car issue when my Toyota would not start. And so
I'm so bummed that you left right before your car problems happened.
No, you're gonna be even more bummed when you hear what it was, dude. It's fucking stupid. I had it towed to the local shop. Didn't cost anything for that, luckily, via AAA. But all for them to tell me that it started with my spare key. It was because I fucked with the key fob. And so then I was able to mangle together like pieces of the new key fob that I bought with the important parts of the old one and some super glue, and now I have like a working, functional, nice key fob.
Yeah, there's
having
like
to carry
a
around
little
too.
chip in there.
Yeah, I
it's-
guess
yeah.
there must be. So that's what
Nice.
did it. I had to pay them $65 to tell me that, and yeah, so
That's actually not bad for a shop. Like a
I know.
diag fee for $65 is.
it's just
that's
annoying
reasonable.
because like but whatever.
Oh yeah, it's super fucking annoying, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's my only car update. Which again, yeah, I had told the other guys, but not you guys. So go ahead, Zach.
Oh, yeah. I was just raring to go, man. Because I did fucking nothing. Not a goddamn thing.
I mean, that's a good
sick.
week sometimes.
Dude, I was super sick all week. I literally did nothing. Like, I didn't go to work. I barely got out of bed. I was like, fuck. I knew I was going to get it eventually. This is my time. It's the Rona. It got me.
Oh no.
Oh shit! I didn't know you had.
No, see, that's the thing. I fucking didn't. 2 tests, both negative. I was hacking up a lung. My lungs were like on
could have
fire.
still had the
I
Rona.
felt like shit. Dude, I don't know. I went to a place. They did a test. It came back negative. Couple days later, I still felt like shit. I went to a doctor. I was like, look, I got a negative test. It's got to be something else. But like, you can recheck just to be sure. They tested. Nope, it's not COVID. It wasn't strep throat. It wasn't fucking anything else. They're just like, I don't know. Your body's shitty. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
yeah, when I got COVID, I took a couple tests and then finally I like popped positive and like same symptoms. So yeah,
weird.
it could be, but who knows, right? Either way, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'm totally good now. I still followed quarantine protocol just because, obviously I'm coughing and sick, so I don't want to get anyone sick no matter what it is. But yeah,
exactly.
Both the tests were, they weren't even like the rapid ones where you get the results back real quick. Because I hear that they're slightly
the antigen test.
They were like the 1 to 3 day ones, and both times, they're like, nope. And one of them was administered by a doctor in a doctor's office, so I don't fucking even know.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like COVID then. It sounds like you got something else, which I've been worried about this. The next time I get a fucking cold, it's going to knock me out. I'm like, I haven't had a cold in 2 years. I'm like, it's going to be bad when I get something. It's going to hit hard.
Oh, yeah.
If I can do a slightly different rant.
Yeah, go for it.
The production that I'm working on, because anyone who's not in the loop here, I work in IATSE, I work in the film industry. 2 of our big actors on this movie got positive COVID tests, and then like 2 days later got negative tests. So they're like, oh, it was a false positive. We're good.
Oh my God.
So they're fully at the point where they're just ignoring positive COVID tests and filming anyway.
No one ever accused actors of being too smart, so I'm not surprised by that.
The thing is, it's not even the actors, man. It's the production. Like, I heard one person say, and I don't know if this is true, that 50% of the people on this show have gotten COVID.
Oh my God.
That doesn't mean actors. That means construction and electric and special effects and fucking everything.
I mean, I believe it.
Like,
that's really just to the larger point of, because also I think for timing purposes, because these episodes take me so long to put out and everything, we are at the end of January right now. And so this is right around the time of the CDC changing their policy to like just quarantine for 5 days, just fucking quarantine on the way to work or whatever. Like just fucking, get tested until you test positive and then fucking go to work. Like,
yeah, the first positive test you get, it's back to work, buddy. It's your boss needs you.
But I mean, so that is the national policy. And I just saw the headline yesterday that the deaths from Omicron have now reached the levels of every other variant because everyone has been treating it as if it were mild. So then that just racks up the deaths because more people get it. So completely nullifies any effects of it being mild because now more people are getting it because it is more contagious. So that's where we're at now. We are just like kind of mask off with the eugenics, like eat shit and die if you're one of the unlucky ones who dies from this and you're not vaccinated or whatever it is. So yes, you love to see it.
I mean, and I think the big thing that I saw when they did the changeover on the 5 days for quarantine was like, it's how companies are building policies. Companies were giving like 2 weeks off and they were giving their employees extra time. So when people are getting it now, they're not getting any extra time off and they have to use their own time because they're following CDC guideline. And that guideline change affects the way that companies feel able to write their policies and gives them more latitude beyond just telling you to come into work. It's like, okay, if you're sick, burn your own time. It's not on us anymore.
Yeah. Brandon?
Okay, so I had COVID a little over 3 months ago, and at my job, the official policy is for 90 days, you're exempt from testing because we test 2 to 3 times a week. If you get COVID, you're exempt for 90 days. If you want a look into how seriously they're taking it, some of my friends that I got COVID with the first round got COVID again already. And I got exposed at least 3 times. So I went the week before I was officially supposed to start testing again to try and test, and it threw them all for a fucking loop. They were like, well, why do you want to test? And I'm like, because I've been exposed a minimum of 3 times. And they're like, but you're exempt from testing. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean I can't get it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we need you to leave. We don't. They refused me a test because I was still 6 days out from being required by the production to test.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Are they talking about it like it's like homework that a kid doesn't want to do? They're like, oh, you don't have to do that. Why do you want to do it? Like, what the fuck?
No, it's actually worse than that, because that would almost make sense. No, the testing portion of this production said to me, like, we don't want to test you because the likelihood of a false positive is too high. And I'm like, that's cool.
God.
I've been exposed by at least 3 different people. So the likelihood of a correct positive is also pretty fucking high.
Yeah.
And the way that all the tests are designed is to avoid false positives. Even the quick tests that you get are like 99%. They skew against false positives. So that is just insane logic all the way around.
That's why everyone on the show thought it was very suspicious when 2 of the main actors both got false positives, when we have individually taken dozens, if not hundreds of tests and individually gotten no false positives.
And yeah, they do skew towards the false negatives. And I think I heard something that, like, if you take the swab and put it in the back of your throat and then put it up your nose, then that's a better test and you can catch it, earlier or whatever. But I did want to say, I don't know what it is in other states, but in Colorado, they have a law now where you're supposed to get up to 80 hours a year of sick leave if you've used up all your other sick time.
Well,
So,
yeah,
like,
okay,
yeah.
great.
so they make you use your PTO first.
Wow.
And then you get the special, like, emergency state leave or whatever. So yippee.
How do you write that bill and not feel, how do you, like, as conservative as you could be, how do you write that bill and not be like, I'm being a piece of shit? As you write it, like, I'm being a piece of shit. How do you not? Don't understand.
Well, we got to compromise, Connor. And speaking
They're
of
the compassionate conservatives.
Can Papa G just please come America now?
Oh yeah.
And speaking of being a huge piece of shit, there's a bill in the U.S. Congress right now to cap the pay of travel nurses so they don't make too much money. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not a
free
solving.
market.
Yeah.
Did we both just say that's the free market?
Because it's very relevant to the Cars and Comrades listeners. I forget the acronym. What is it? The BNSF Railway?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The court struck down their right to strike this week.
Yeah.
So let us not forget that the government does not give a fuck about workers. They were trying to strike because I don't understand the policy completely, but it was due to their lack of sick and vacation time.
Yeah.
And a judge said, actually, you're not allowed to strike.
Well, and America hates rail in general, right? Like,
Dude, this is not like travel the country and like sow your wild rail traffic. They denied these people's right to strike because they didn't want to fuck up the supply chain further.
exactly.
Right.
Which is pretty much the greatest power that workers have. And that's always been the case. So, like, this precedent is just like Taft-Hartley, extremely dangerous, because now they could just be like, that might ruin the supply chain. And you're like, yeah, that's literally the point. That's what a strike is. Maybe you missed that. That's what it's for. So, again,
Basically, like, this was the soft opening for, no, a general strike is not allowed. Fuck you.
Yeah. So I think a little bit later in this episode, I am going to have some ideas for how unions can kind of go forward, and whether that's following the rules or not, whatever. And I think everyone else should have probably a couple suggestions too, just to point out that I think the point is, one, we're putting out positive ideas for like what the future could look like for labor struggles. But I think it's also important to kind of demonstrate that, like, there are union leaders today who didn't come up with these ideas, who have not tried any of this. Where are they? Like, what the fuck? How long are you going to get your ass beat before you're like, oh, gee, maybe I should throw a punch? I'm just saying, like, yeah, come on. Yeah, Mike.
I have a question regarding the, just not allowing workers to strike. Maybe you could explain, Brandon, for the listeners, of course, not for me, because I definitely understand this, of course, but explain like what it means that they're not allowed to strike. I'm assuming that just means that they don't have access to strike funds, and therefore, if they do strike anyway, this is all on their own dime and at their own risk individually.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, yeah. It's like you can't. You don't get protection.
Some sort of contempt of court charge. If I had to take a shot in the dark that this is more of a moral victory for capital, because there's nothing to actually prevent anybody from going on strike.
Right.
There just might be more repercussions than there were before.
And I think getting to your point, Connor, about suggestions and ideas for strike tactics in the future, I think that kind of just points to probably an anarchist tactic of like building mutual or dual power and having like black strike funds. Like if we can't access the legal strike funds because the strike is legal, maybe we need to have an illegal strike fund. Maybe we need a black GoFundMe, a Go Black Me, if you will.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, that's related to some of the ideas. There you go, Mike. That's exactly what I'm talking about. See,
I got it. GoBlackMe.com. I think it might be already taken. We'll see. But
I was going to say that sounds like something else.
Don't Google that.
Like that is a funny idea though. All the dark money we have in politics, you just need dark money in union stuff, but only for good somehow.
Yeah. So there was a time when the mob had a lot of involvement with labor unions, and that could have been good if the mob was different, but obviously the mob was the mob, and so
yeah, we want to make a good mob.
Even when the mob was the mob, it was still probably better than this.
I mean, I'm just saying, I think there are some tactics that I'm like, yo, they got shit done. I mean,
like even the mob was at worst killing dozens of people instead of thousands.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
There are some suspicious ways that the mob is better than the U.S. government.
I mean,
at least the mob's like hyper local, like they work within one small area and they need to extract wealth from these small group of people, so they can't kill all of them.
I mean, Phil, I could make the case that you could exercise extreme personal responsibility with the mob more easily than you can with the government, because if like mobsters are giving you a hard time, you really just want to be like Rambo about it. You could take matters into your own hands with them and possibly live to tell the tale if you take out enough of them. But the government, like, they just have an endless amount. Like, you cannot do that. So
I'm not going to actually like praise the mob because that feels like an entirely too ANCAP thing to do.
I mean, here's the other thing is I can choose not to deal with the mob normally. Like, I've never really had a lot of mob run-ins. I have to deal with the government.
True.
It was your car update.
I mean, the only like wildcat strike I can think of recently that actually succeeded was the West Virginia teachers strike like 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the way that they accomplished that was they coordinated in Facebook groups so that they all went on strike at the same time. And basically, even though it was an illegal strike, the state couldn't fire all the teachers or, 60% of the teachers or whatever, however many went on strike. And like, they couldn't really penalize them however they would, So it was a successful thing. I don't know what the what is it, BNSF, what their deal is, but like I know in some industries, like I think you can. Brandon, wasn't it you that was talking about how like if you had a wildcat strike, you could like lose your union membership or something like that, or something.
When my local voted to strike and we didn't go on strike, there was talk about wildcatting because everyone was unhappy with the contract that we got. But yeah, that said, if you wildcat, you run the risk of being ejected from the union completely.
But again, if everyone does a wildcat strike, they can't really do that to you.
Yeah, that's why 100% you can wildcat. You just got to really have the fucking numbers if you want to do it.
Right.
Does the Area 51 raid still live in anybody else's head like it does in mine? Like just that idea, the fact that like so many people were able to get on board with like collective action or just the idea of it for like a good couple months there, even because it was a meme. Like it has to be something as ridiculous as that for it to really take hold in people.
Do you remember what the turnout for that looked like?
Well, I think they realized a couple months before how willing the government was going to be to use very lethal force on them if they actually showed up.
We want Naruto run at the same time. I won't get shot.
And do you feel like that's less true for striking workers?
It looks worse, and it also I think people don't realize how much power there is in literally just sitting the fuck down. Like I forget where do they have the lay down movement? Is it Japan?
That is China. The lying flat
Yeah,
movement.
I mean, well, it's tied in with the anti-work stuff too. It's like that's the American version of the lay down strikes or the sit down strikes.
China, they've had the whole touching fish thing for years now.
Yep.
What's the touching fish thing?
Does anyone understand it very well? Because I understand it moderately. Okay, so I don't know exactly, like, because I think that there is something lost in translation, but there's a certain old adage about like touching fish, and it roughly translates into like, you know, killing time, just kind of slacking off and fucking around.
Oh, okay.
And
there's a really good Behind the Bastards on it if I can find it.
Yeah, like for all the ways that I will absolutely back like and support China, they actually do not have a great rapport with workers in China right now. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of even leftists, like this is not like a reactionary thing. I have listened to interviews with like Chinese nationals who were leftists and trying to push the Chinese government in a certain direction. I forget the name of that collective. It was not the one that everyone knows about. It was another one. Anyway, yeah, that like their whole like mantra is touching fish, and it basically means like you're fucking around. Like if you have to work for 12 hours, you fuck around for a while because you have to be there and you're gonna be there, but it doesn't mean you have to make the boss any money.
But I mean, some of it is ennui. Like it's a philosophical issue. Like we're all getting pushed into office jobs, right? And, you know, there's a lot of people, myself included, you know, I graduated college, did an office job, and I hated it and had to find my way back into a different part of the workforce. And I'm much happier just working with my hands. But the push is to work in offices, and that is soul sucking for a large majority of people. And even in a leftist government, you're going to have to find a way to make office jobs suck less so people don't hate that work, you know, even if it's important work. Like there's got to be a way to do it where it's not so depleting on the person doing the work.
So should we just like kind of co-opt and weaponize the whole touch grass thing from the internet? Like
already on it, guys.
Seriously though, a little bit. Like, I mean, like everybody's getting pushed into these like dead corporate offices that fucking suck the soul out of you. And people already say touch grass all the time when they're being shitty on the internet. So if we just co-opted that into being like, hey, like you work 8 hours a day in this shitty office, fucking everybody touch grass, like just like touching fish, like go fucking sit in a field for a minute, get out of the
work remotely from a field. That's what I think.
Yeah. I bet you so many people would be happier doing that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I bet you work on getting some bitches.
Yeah, work virtually not at all.
Based. All right. You want to get into the actual discussion then?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely would like to get started. So,
all right,
I'm going to grab a beer.
Right, we're recording.
Well, hold on a second. I'm going to knock out the intro and then we will take a break. Yeah, let me do that real quick. Let me just knock out the intro just so I can get it over with.
Okay.
If I can. What were you going to say, Connor? Sorry.
I was going to make a joke how I was going to like, I'm just going to make a bunch of noise while you do your intro. Wow, 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 wow. But then,
I mean, it probably wouldn't matter.
I might do that anyway. We'll see.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Turn Leftist podcast.
Wow. Sorry. Okay, I'm done. I swear I'm done this time.
Yeah, so Phil, how you doing? How'd you make out with the storm?
I did pretty good. Yeah, we got like 7-ish inches. Not too bad.
That's what she said.
Hey-o.
Got pretty tuned up last night. I fire going out back all day because she said she wanted to chill out back for a little bit. And it was so cold out that like I had to start fire like 3 hours before, just so that all the bricks in the chimney would like get warm and actually start radiating heat.
Wild.
Yeah. My neighbor said something to me yesterday. He's like, yeah, I thought my house was on fire. It kept smelling wood burning all day.
To be notorious at my old job for just smelling like a campfire all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it was because I heated my house with like a wood fire stove for 2 years.
Oh, okay. How about you, Danger? You got hit pretty hard.
No, we didn't get hit that bad.
Oh, really? Oh, no, that was Boston. Boston got fucking
Yeah, Boston Airport got like over 2 feet of snow.
Yeah, that's
In all fairness, fuck Boston.
I mean, fuck Boston.
Agreed. Fuck Boston.
All the listeners from Boston, Brad Marchand is a little bitch.
Yeah, fuck Marchand.
Wait, so now it's cars, coffee, and hockey?
I don't know who Brad Marstrand is, but if you listen to this show and you live in Boston, you're all right with me. You're probably one of the good ones. But everyone you know fucking sucks. So live with that.
It's like a racist city.
It's like the most racist city.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the most racist city in the north.
What else are they known for?
Tearing down literally every building in downtown and then rebuilding it to look old.
Gross.
Well, you don't want an actually old building. That's gross and icky.
Mike, did you guys get hit with a bunch of snow?
Bro, I have like 2 feet outside.
That's wild.
Yeah. But that's actually normal for here.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. You live next to a huge body of water.
Yeah, it's like lake effect is a real thing. It's crazy.
Not to be ableist here, but every time I go outside, I've got 2 feet outside.
Oh, heyo.
I don't think it's ableist to recognize a privilege, actually.
Here's something that's going to get cut from the pod. Before we get started, I read something about Willem Dafoe did a movie with Lars von Trier.
Oh, penis double.
Yeah, they had to get a penis double because his dick was too big.
It was,
Why would I cut that?
and I quote, confusingly large.
Yes, confusingly large.
I love that that's making the rounds again because he was on Saturday Night Live, but like that's been a thing that's been floating around for years.
I just hope it's true.
Me too.
It's been floating around.
It's my favorite story.
It's been floating around ever since that movie got made.
There's things in the world that are like important. Like that's how I judge whether truth matters, right? Like, is it important if it's true? Then truth matters. Is it not important if it's true? Then truth doesn't matter. And like, I choose to believe that Willem Dafoe's dick is so large that it's confusing to see because it's hilarious. And the truth of the matter doesn't make any difference, but the hilarity makes
I'll
me
send you
happy.
the scene, Phil. You can judge for yourself. It's a hog.
I also love that everyone knew what I was talking about.
Just for the record, I had not heard this.
Yeah, me neither.
But I did get in an argument with some liberal about this kind of thing. I forget what it was. I made some joke about some
Dafoe's dick?
No, not about penises, but about some other like celebrity gossip. It was just a joke. It was like, who cares? And they're like, the truth matters because like democracy dies in darkness. So I'm like, shut up, nerd.
You.
Like, come on.
I mean, truth matters, but liberals do not have truth.
Free. Democracy did die in darkness. Wow, I really killed this whole conversation. Big ups to me.
Busy eating this burrito. Sorry.
I was trying to make a Dark Knight Rises joke, but I couldn't get there. The wheels were turning, but I wasn't getting
Willem
there.
Dafoe's Dark Knight Rises.
There you go.
Some of us need to do like a Dark Knight Rises film review where Bane is just inevitably the good guy.
Man, I would love to. Me and Mike, I feel like would have a fucking hilarious thing doing that because we're both big fans of Kill James Bond.
Yeah, that rules.
I feel like it would be great because like Batman is also that like superhero in that same vein. It would be totally riding their coattails, but like I would love to do that.
I like. There's so much dialogue about whether or not Batman is or is not good, is fascist, is anti-fascist, blah 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 blah. I just don't care. Fuck Batman.
Yeah. Who cares?
Bro, he's a trust fund baby who beats up mentally ill people. Like,
Yeah, he's like Elon Musk with a workout routine.
yeah.
But like I grew up loving that guy. You know, I grew up loving Batman, and that's the thing. It's like the character is unimportant. It's like that it's a cultural touchstone. You know, that's if you haven't listened to Kill James Bond, that's what they're getting at, and they never say.
If you do that, you know, Kill Batman podcast, I really hope you do like the older stuff too, like the
Oh yeah, you have to. The
TV show.
Like
With,
the
what's his name?
original TV
Adam
show.
West.
Yeah. Adam West. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Mike, we'd have to get Ren on it though.
Yeah, he'd be pissed to hear that. He loves Batman.
He does.
I have a coworker that I've been talking about cars with like nonstop for like 3 weeks because he is a former like head mechanic for a dealership and a bunch of other places. And I was like, yes, my people. And it literally was like 2.5 weeks into us becoming friends when he like casually mentioned something about being gay. And I'm like, somebody that could come on our show, not us just
That's
a
awesome.
regular straight white guy.
That'd be a nice
He's a
change.
spicy white guy.
Yeah, but then I had to have the internal dialogue of like, do I really want to talk to my coworker about how I have a communist podcast?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or no. I'm still of the school of thought that having a podcast is something to be deeply ashamed of.
Yeah, for the most part.
Oh yeah, I don't talk to people in real life about it.
There's like 3 of my friends that know that I have this.
My mom on Friday texted me. She goes, "Do you have a podcast?" And I was like, "Oh fuck!" And so I said, "Yeah, it's about politics."
Isn't it?
By the way, who said that? And then I said, I did tell her one of my co-hosts was the drummer for the Indigo Girls because she's a huge Indigo Girls fan. But she has like literally has not even read the text since Friday. I'm like, all right, I don't know. I'll call her.
That's the closest you're ever going to get to coming out as a straight white guy, by the way.
Oh yeah, I mean,
It's like, Mom, I have something very important to tell you. I have a
I'm a
podcast.
podcaster.
I'm indoctrinating these kids.
God damn it! No, I thought you were just gay.
I was hoping you were gay. I didn't think it had gotten this bad.
Yeah, that'd be better.
You have a podcast. Oh my God, you have a leftist podcast. How am I going to talk to your father about this?
Written out of the will.
Don't tell Dad. Just don't tell Dad yet. He's not ready.
I mean, I don't know all of your family's politics, Mike, but I remember the first time I ever met anybody in your family was you had somebody that like went to jail for. I was like, I can get down with that.
Yeah.
Seems pretty rad.
All right, it's coming out here, folks. Mike's from a lib family.
Yeah, actually, yeah, very much so.
No, I'm making a joke because everybody gets really hung up on like what your like family is.
Right.
Like living in the punk scene, it's super important if your family has money. And I kind of get it, but then at the same time, it's like, well, if your family has money, are you just doomed to be a piece of shit for the rest of your life because you can always attribute it to your family has money or has this or has that?
Right.
No, you get to escape that. Mike has overcome his liberal heritage
Fucking hope.
by starting a leftist podcast.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. You heard it here. Mike says vote Biden.
Oh my God.
Only for harm reduction, guys. Come on.
Okay. All right. I got to get into the material. This is getting too
Off the
If we
rails.
re-elect them, the kids will actually come out of the cages if we re-elect them.
Speaking of harm reduction, let's talk about Walter Reuther.
yeah. Thanks, Walter.
What a segue.
Well, I mean, if you've been keeping up with the show, you know that I just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
God, those communists are amazing.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Turn Leftist podcast. Mike, hey, him. And tonight, my guests are Phil, hey, him, and Mark, hey, him. And these are just close friends of mine. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good, Mike.
Glad to have you guys here. Like I said, close friends of mine, grew up in the same town. So if you hear any of like the weird accent things that I try to hide, that's where that's all coming from.
And also, Phil's the reason that Turn Leftist and Cars and Comrades got put in touch with each other. So let's give him some credit for that.
That is true. I forgot about that. Thank you.
Or blame.
Yeah, you know.
I accept
Credit
all
if
the
you're
blame.
the smaller podcast. Blame if you're the bigger one that's had to deal with us for 12 episodes.
Dude, I've been loving it. But yeah, obviously I have all the guys from the Cars and Comrades podcast as well. So we have Brandon, he, him, Brian, he, him, Connor, he, him, and Zach, he, him. How are you all doing?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Good.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys back, and I'm glad to be picking up on the Walter Reuther series for what we are tentatively calling the last episode of this series. We'll see if we actually get through all the material and we can actually wrap it up in this one, but I don't know. We'll try to. What do you
Yep,
think,
we're going to try. Thanks for hedging your bets, though.
I mean, I'm going to say it in such a way that I can cut it out if we don't wrap it up this one, but we'll see.
Unless he comes back from the dead. Spoiler, he dies at the end.
As I've said before, if he comes back from the dead, at least 4 more episodes.
I mean, that would be a pretty major thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Our next episode is just going to be us contacting him on a Ouija board.
Doing a seance.
Yeah.
I am willing to do so many mushrooms that I conjure up the like soul of Walter Reuther.
Well, technically, I don't think you guys are not fully caught up. In fact, I think our guests here
It'd
don't
be
even know what
impossible to
episode
be
number
so.
this is.
I don't know what episode number this is, and I'm one of the hosts.
Going in cold.
This is number 7.
7?
Yeah.
Jesus.
This is,
Oh my god, I said that as a joke, but I honestly thought it was 5.
I'm not going to lie, I thought we were on 9, so, you know, that's not
9/11, baby.
Wait, so are me and Mark like where you guys are just jumping the shark and we're just the new characters at the end of Happy Days? Like we're
yeah, pretty much.
Just breathe some life into this dying beast.
Well, speaking of dying beasts.
All right, Connor, for real, buddy. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Let's
I
get
got
through it,
this.
boys.
Sorry. So I did want to, before we get into Walter Reuther's death, which is definitely the big thing we're going to be talking about here, because all of everything Walter Reuther did, I would argue, ultimately did lead to his, we'll call, suspicious death.
Untimely.
Yeah, untimely, for sure. So before we get to that, there was just a couple little loose ends that I wanted to tie up. And so I wanted to kind of jump right into those. After 6 episodes, I feel like there really shouldn't be any loose ends, but there's definitely going to be. Story's just that detailed. One of those loose ends is the UAW disaffiliation from the AFL-CIO. And ever since Walter agreed to merge the CIO with the American Federation of Labor, Walter took a back seat in the organization by becoming one of the many vice presidents. Walter still had power in the form of being very well known to the public and many political connections that we've discussed in detail. Although now we kind of understand that those relationships were not nearly as valuable as Walter had actually thought they were. But George Meany was steering the ship ultimately. And that was kind of disastrous in a lot of ways. Walter did not get along with George Meany at all, and I would say that is probably to his credit. George Meany is a bastard and an enemy of the working class, remember? And remember, I did mention the cemetery he is buried at, so you know what to do.
So if you are nearby and can't find a restroom.
Yep. And Maryland is a very small state. His last contribution to the world was a gender-neutral bathroom.
And for dogs, too. You know, dogs love it.
True.
Yeah.
Feces neutral restroom.
Yeah.
Now, the UAW disaffiliated from the AFL-CIO on July 1st, 1968, after Reuther and President George Meany could not come to agreement on a whole shitload of policy issues and reforms to the AFL-CIO governance. So on July 24th, 1968, obviously a couple weeks after the UAW disaffiliation, Teamsters General President Frank Fitzsimmons and Reuther formed the Alliance for Labor Action as a new national trade union centered to organize unorganized workers and pursue leftist political and social projects. So obviously is kind of what Walter was all about, broadening the impact of the labor movement. This new, more leftist type of union federation was almost certainly viewed as a threat to the ruling class and by Walter's many enemies. Meany denounced the ALA as a dual union, although Reuther argued it was not. Not sure why he would have suggested that it was. Kind of just seemed like a different union alliance. So, again, he was a bastard. Yeah, Phil.
Well, when you say dual union, like I don't know what you mean. So you're saying with like a union within a union?
So I'm not 100% clear, but dual union is like if you have membership in two unions. So
okay, like dual, dual citizenship or something.
Well, I would dual membership if I joined a different local in the same union.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like it literally just means that you're a member of multiple unions or just two or whatever.
Gotcha.
Yeah, actually, the IWW is kind of known for a dual union strategy. That's they want people to be members of the IWW plus whatever their local is. And so apparently not everybody likes that. They must like losing. So anyway, Meany denounced the ALA as a dual union, although Reuther argued it was not. The Alliance's initial program was pretty ambitious. Unfortunately, after Reuther's death in a plane crash in 1970, the group halted operations in July 1971, after the auto workers, now almost bankrupt from a lengthy strike at General Motors, was unable to continue to fund its operations. So I wanted to mention this. Walter eventually did get sick of the AFL-CIO, took the UAW out, which at the time, the UAW was the largest single union in the AFL-CIO. So that was a big deal. And then he allied with the Teamsters, which was at the time obviously had some issues, but was rather progressive in their program. So
still has some issues, but is potentially heading in that direction again.
It does seem that way. So the UAW is not. By the way, the UAW is currently affiliated with the AFL-CIO again. I did look for it a little bit. I don't know when they re-affiliated, but I would imagine it was probably sometime in the 70s or 80s, but it could have been in the 2000s for all I know. I really don't know, but they are currently members of the AFL-CIO. Anyway, the other little thing I wanted to mention here is Walter's involvement with the first Earth Day. The UAW was the most instrumental outside financial and operational supporter of the first Earth Day in 1970. According to Dennis Hayes, that was Earth Day's first national coordinator, who said, without the UAW, the first Earth Day would have likely flopped. Now, this might not sound very important today.
It really doesn't.
I know. Bear with me. But it did actually matter at the time. Today, Earth Day is just another national insert whatever fucking day here, which we have a million of those. They don't fucking mean anything.
It's important to recognize what planet you live on.
So when it first started, though, it was actually much more important than it is today. We couldn't
be less important than it is today.
Exactly.
Come on, Brandon. That's right up there with Flag Day.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, anyway, so at the time we didn't know as much about climate change, but pollution was fucking crazy. Like, seriously, it was unimaginably bad for us younger folks today to realize just how polluted the air and the whole environment was at the time. It seems bad today, but like
rivers were lighting on fire.
Yeah, it was real fucking bad. So it was a top issue at the time for Walter, who was always a strong environmentalist, and he always advocated for environmental issues. After the first Earth Day later that year, the EPA was proposed by in July and then created by Richard fucking Nixon in December. So like Earth Day happens, the EPA is created like months later. So
honestly wish modern Democrats could even be as far left as 1970 Republicans.
Yeah. I know. Yes. It's so bad. It really is that bad.
No, it's actually worse.
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, so yeah, Richard Nixon then created the EPA because of public support for things like environmental issues. So it led to the first emissions controls on cars and trucks, which we can thank today for the much cleaner air that we enjoy. So Walter Reuther's influence played a major role in how these environmental policies actually played out.
As a Cars podcast, like, it's refreshing to hear car people actually thank like emissions controls. Like, they did a lot of good just on the car end of this. Like,
Wait, you mean I shouldn't be breathing in lead?
Exactly.
It really depends on what your end goal is. If you want to have less personal like control over your own actions, yes, lead is good.
Yeah, I want that part of my brain not to form, and I'm crazy
If
violent.
you want to lash out at your family and friends for seemingly no reason, lead is the way to go.
Exactly.
Very
If
effective.
you want to have like more learning disabilities, yeah, lead every day.
But I mean, fear not, because I just saw a graph today of all the lead pipes that are still in use around the country. And if you think it's just in Flint, Michigan, ooh, do I have a surprise for you?
Yeah.
And I have some engineering information for you. Lead pipes aren't actually that dangerous when they're being used. It's when they lay dormant for a while and then go into use that they become incredibly dangerous.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When they're in use, something about like actually flowing water either leaches such a low amount of lead into the drinking water. Yeah, Phil, go ahead.
Mike, you're gonna have to cut a whole bunch of shit because I don't.
Phil,
Yeah.
just say it's your job, and then just tell us that it's all right. Like,
Yeah, so they use tons of things to make sure that water deposits on pipes instead of leaches from pipes. But like, yeah, the water pipes lead stuff isn't too terrible as long as they're listening to chemistry, like listening to chemists. It's, Flint happened because they stopped listening to chemists.
And they
And
flipped the water source to something more acidic, and then
Exactly.
it deposits off the pipes, and then it started leaching the lead.
exactly, they didn't change their phosphate dosing, and then they changed their water chemistry, and then it just started leaching lead out. Methyl ethyl lead in gas is different because everyone is getting dosed by tailpipes. And there's probably something to do with like breathing it in versus drinking it. But like, yeah, working in an environmental like industry, yeah, it's lead. Lead is still all around, but there's a lot of people looking at it now.
You heard Phil, facts don't care about your feelings.
yep.
Right, yeah.
Once again, ruining my joke with your facts.
I was just going to say for the listener, we've done a couple episodes on this, the ones that Connor researched about the EPA and the, what was it called? The
RPM Act.
The RPM Act. Yes, that's right. And then the one that I researched about leaded gasoline and just lead in general, which was kind of scary, I got to say. There's a shit ton of lead out in the environment now, and it's not good for you.
Yep.
So,
Lead is absolutely bad, but there are times when it's not as bad as other times.
yeah.
But yeah, sorry for the diatribe, but as a Cars podcast, it's really refreshing to hear somebody be like, yeah, emissions control, they don't suck that bad.
Connor has gone on record saying that catalytic converters are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll sign on to that.
I mean, honestly, I swear, it's like people look around, oh, they're killing performance. I'm like, bro, there's fucking 700 horsepower production cars, like it ain't shit anymore. You can thank emissions controls.
If your car isn't making enough power because of your catalytic converter, then your car isn't making enough power.
Yep.
Like, period.
Yeah.
That is not the fucking difference. Like, look at other fucking sources of power leaching, because the
Yeah.
cat ain't it, bud.
Maybe the cat's not the problem. Maybe you drive a Miata.
Ooh,
Don't
ouch.
you bring Miatas into this?
All right. Now, returning back to the story, let's get into the plane crash.
Just
So-
an ordinary crash.
Yeah, just
Plain old
a regular old plane crash. Happens all the time. No big deal.
Plain old crash.
So on May 9th, 1970, Walter Reuther, his wife May, architect Oscar Stonerov, Reuther's bodyguard William Wolfman, the pilot and co-pilot were all killed when their chartered Learjet 23 crashed in flames at 9:33 p.m. Eastern Time. The plane, arriving from Detroit in rain and fog, was on final approach to Pellston Regional Airport in Pellston, Michigan, near the UAW's recreational and educational facility at Black Lake, Michigan. The National Transportation Safety Board discovered that the plane's altimeter, which is like the altitude measuring gauge, was missing parts. Some incorrect parts were installed, and one of its parts had been installed upside down, leading some to speculate that Reuther may have been murdered.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I don't know if anybody happens to know about the routine checks that go into every plane, but like, there's a checklist you have to go through because flight is fucking serious. Like, it's not like your car where it breaks down, you pull over. So I think that is one of them, isn't it? To like check your altimeter?
Yes. So there's a couple little things. We'll take a quick break right here just to point out that, one, it sounds kind of bad where you're like, hey, who's this Walter asshole that he's taking private jets? Fuck this guy. I got you. But he's flying between Detroit, UAW headquarters here and there. He's going to Washington, D.C. This guy's all over the fucking country. So he does fly in a chartered jet fairly frequently. A lot of labor bosses have to do this. Maybe it's not ideal. Maybe he could have driven. It's Michigan, but like, I don't know. He's a busy fucking guy. This is far from the worst thing.
It doesn't matter how much he polluted because he started Earth Day.
Well, again, it's not personal decisions that cause all this, whatever. But anyway, so he's traveling around. But one of the things that's important to note about this kind of travel is that planes get swapped around a lot, and these pilots keep flying different planes. So they might have 4 flights in a day, but they might fly 4 different fucking planes. So the pilots demand a very high level of checking that everything's right. So before and after every flight, the planes are checked thoroughly. You know, all the controls are checked, the gauges, things like the altimeter are checked, because obviously the pilots are like, I don't know who fucking flew this plane last. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with it.
I've worked with former airplane mechanics. It's required that your tool set is itemized. And if you're missing a socket, the plane can't take off until you have found it.
Damn.
Wow. Yeah. Oof.
And those motherfuckers just walk off all the time.
Yeah.
If you are an airplane mechanic who works on commercial airplanes, you do not fuck around losing your 10 millimeter.
Yeah, there go my dreams of being an airplane mechanic.
Yeah. Zach's toolbox has everything except a 10 millimeter in it.
Yeah.
This altimeter thing should have been caught, is the point,
Yes.
right? Like,
But it's all good because his
Absolutely.
Subaru has like 14 10 millimeters throughout the whole fucking car.
If I ever get rid of it, someone's going to get a plethora of 10 millimeters. They're just going to have to search every nook and cranny for them.
Yeah, if you ever scrap that thing out, you know, when they take it to the junkyard, just have them like pick it up upside down and shake it a little bit.
Well, we found $40 worth of sockets in this thing.
My one of my coworkers used to be an airplane mechanic, and he said that one time they had to tear the entire dashboard out of like a jet because someone left a screwdriver in there, and it was just like rattling around behind the console or whatever.
Yeah, that makes me really happy that I work on cars because, no lie, I have dropped a 10 millimeter in my engine bay and did not hear it hit the ground. And then well, the motor's not open, so it's not inside anything. I'll probably be fine. And then was driving down the road and heard it
Check
come.
where the fan is. Call it a day.
Oh yeah, I heard it come out on the road. I was like, yep, it was in there. It's fine now.
But to get us back on topic slightly, the point that we are making, and I think somewhat effectively, is that if you're an airplane mechanic, nothing gets to slip by you. Parts don't get to be installed upside down or incorrectly, and that just floats. Like, no, everything is accounted for.
Yeah, this altimeter thing is not sus. It's big sus.
Yeah.
And there's also multiple people checking.
Yeah, well, and so I'm sure this is also brought up later in what I'm going to be reading further, but there was someone else on this plane not that long beforehand who didn't mention any issues with the altimeter, who definitely would have known if there was something wrong with the altimeter.
mhm.
So there was something fishy going on here. Now, in all the research I've done, what I have not come across is any name for who inspected the fucking plane. Presumably someone did it. I would argue that that person should probably be questioned because I don't know their name.
But they never signed off on it.
There's a checklist somewhere that
Yeah.
just disappeared. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
So Michael Parenti, I know for a fact, did request a bunch of documents relating to the death of Walter Reuther. he didn't come across anything as far as I'm aware. He doesn't say anything in his article. So again, I would be questioning, well, gee, who looked at the fucking plane? Maybe we should ask them some questions.
You heard it here first, folks. Michael Parenti is cringe.
Yeah, actually, it's funny.
No, he's absolutely not. That's a joke. I am making a joke.
Side note, very excited to eventually have a proper dope ass sound system in my car, specifically to listen to Michael Parenti. Especially him having mic trouble. Never fails. So anyway, yeah, so the altimeter was all fucky. Something was there. Reuther had also been subjected earlier to 2 attempted assassinations and a similar near crash in a small plane in 1969. So the year before. Also weird. Now, journalist Michael Parenti wrote, Reuther's demise appears as part of a truncation of liberal and radical leadership that included the deaths of 4 national figures: President John Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Senator Robert Kennedy. Now, on that note, I would like to read from the Michael Parenti article directly about this incident to finish up the story here. By the way, I should probably remind people of the name of this article, The Wonderful Life and Strange Death of Walter Reuther by Michael Parenti and Peggy Noten, his research assistant at the time. This is in a publication called Covert Action Quarterly, which I think is a very funny name. If you look up this article, it's probably not going to be the first Google result, but like it is like a downloadable PDF. So like you can find it, it's there, but that's the article we're reading from. I do encourage people to check out this article. It's really well done. And of course, if you listen to enough Michael Parenti, you could definitely hear his voice when you read this. So I'm skipping down here to the section specifically about the plane crash. There's plenty more to this article, but we're gonna go through it this way. So the fatal crash, disturbing evidence. Now, the struggles of Walter Reuther's life provide ample cause to give more than cursory attention to the questionable circumstances of his death. First, as president of the largest union in the country, Reuther had the resources for advancing his causes on the national scene, as did few others. He was an extraordinarily effective proponent of socioeconomic equality and an outspoken critic of the military-industrial complex, the arms race, the CIA, the entire national security state, and the Vietnam War. For these stands, he earned the enmity of people in high places. Second, in the years before the fatal crash, there had been assassination attempts against Walter and Victor. Victor believes the attempt against him was intended as a message to Walter. In each of these instances, state and federal law enforcement agencies were at best lackadaisical in their investigative efforts, suggesting the possibility of official collusion or at least tolerance for the criminal deeds. Mm-hmm. Third, like the suspicious near crash a year and a half earlier, the fatal crash also involved a faulty altimeter in a small plane. It is a remarkable coincidence that Reuther would have been in 2 planes with the exact same malfunction in that brief time. Fourth, and most significantly, the National Transportation Safety Board investigation of the fatal May 1970 crash turned up disturbing evidence. What the hell just happened? Sorry, this skipped ahead somehow. Wow, this super lost my place. Sorry, please cut this out. I look stupid.
Leave this in so we look stupid.
Okay, that's fair.
While you're looking that up, it's like important to remind people that, you know, a decade before this or 2 decades before this, Ford's lackeys were beating Walter Reuther up like senseless and, you know, beating other people for this, to go to the point where, you know, an assassination, you know, can we prove it? No, absolutely not. But, you know, does it look super sus? Absolutely.
Nah, they would never.
Yeah, exactly. But like, is it out of the realm? No, because they literally would have beat him to death if they had another 20 minutes with him. You know, 10 years before, whenever the Battle of the Overpass was.
Yeah, they also had those, Harry Bennett hired those 2 guys to break into his house and try and kidnap him. And then there was the shootings of Victor and Walter. So
and this is all proven, you know, factual stuff that there's no debate about. So yeah, they were out for this guy.
Yeah, he just wasn't as lucky as Castro.
It's weird, but worth mentioning that, like, in this era, he didn't have any friends in the left.
Like,
Yeah.
literally, this dude at this point had no allies. Well, you know,
He had
centrist,
some, but
quote unquote.
Yeah,
But-
what the fuck are they gonna do then?
Support fascism inadvertently.
Yeah, probably.
yeah. So anyway, when they were investigating the crash and they disassembled the captain's altimeter, they found no fewer than 7 abnormalities. Most significantly, investigators found a brass screw lying loose in the altimeter case. Although the report notes that with the loosened screw, the altimeter would have read high by 225 to 250 feet. The investigators did not say who or what had loosened it. They did, however, manage to eliminate the crash itself as the cause. So, yeah, they did a whole bunch of stuff. Point being, there was little parts that were fucky, right?
How many problems did you say that they encountered?
7, but like they're all with the altimeter.
How many would normally pass through an aerospace fucking inspection?
0 to 1.
Yeah, basically, if it's fucked up, if it's not reading right, they would know. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would know that, like, hey, something's not quite right. So, yeah, so this is a very sophisticated way of making it read a certain way. Like, the plane operates as normal, but it's going to read high. And that's usually not a big deal, except for shitty weather, in which case you can't see the runway very well. Now, further examination revealed 6 other unusual defects in the altimeter, which include an incorrect pivot was installed in one end of the rocking shaft, an end stone was missing from the opposite end of the rocking shaft, a ring jewel within the mechanism was installed off-center, a second rocking shaft rear support pivot was incorrect, the wrong kind of link pin, which holds a spring clip in place at the pneumatic capsule, was installed, and an end stone which supports a shaft within the mechanism was installed upside down. All fucking gibberish to me, but basically a bunch of small shit was like fucked up. It's how would you get the wrong fucking link pin in there by accident and nobody noticed?
I feel like the important thing that we do here is acknowledge that there's a lot of requirements amongst aerospace engineers and technicians that say that you have to inspect these things ad nauseum. You do not get to skip over something. I literally earlier today was watching a video about how an automotive conductor had done exactly what he was trained to do and still failed because he didn't go through things the way that you're supposed to go through. He went through things the way that the company told him to. And even that was 1 to 2 failures for a locomotive. The idea that an airplane was able to go through 7 failures.
Again, I would just stress it is essentially one failure caused by 7 abnormalities within this unit. So, like, they don't check every single little pin in this gauge, but like the gauge was fucking wrong. They should have absolutely caught that.
I guess what I'm saying is that I tend to err on the side of conservative in terms of conspiracy theory. Like,
same.
I don't like being the Bush did 9/11 guy because I genuinely don't believe a lot of those things.
Yeah,
But
I am a skeptic myself. I think you're coming at this the right way.
Yeah, like I'm willing to accept evidence as it is presented to me, but I'm still skeptical anytime somebody says, well, I believe in this conspiracy theory because of these 24 things. That being said, this is fairly straightforward in a lot of respects. And having known airplane mechanics, 7 failures of a single system, it's really fucking suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, either this was put together by the worst altimeter technician in the world, or it was deliberately sabotaged, and I know which I'm leaning towards. But
and the thing that like I want to say, and it doesn't represent my actual attitude, but like it is entirely possible that there were 7 flights before this where 7 different technicians took 7 different shortcuts.
Sure.
Is it likely? No, it's not. It's possible that 7 different things were overlooked.
But then you would have noticed it like in the previous flights at some point. Someone would have said, hey, the altimeter's reading off by a couple hundred feet. And I think that's kind of the damning piece of this.
Sorry, I don't know exactly how an altimeter works, but yeah, if it's 200 to 250 feet off, I think it's what you said.
Yep.
There is this portion of time where you're moving on the ground, which it should be zeroed out, or whatever. Honestly, don't know how an altimeter works, what its reading would be, but I think that would be very, very noticeable to a pilot who knows where they are as far as elevation.
Yeah. To be fair, the pilots themselves clearly didn't notice because they died too. So they definitely didn't notice. So however it reads, it must have been reading 0 on the ground. But in theory, I would think there is some way that the inspection catches this. Yeah, Brian.
I was going to say real quick, I don't know a whole lot about altimeters, but I think in this time period that they would normally work off of air pressure. And there are situations where if like the barometric pressure changes, like if a storm comes in, that could throw off your reading. But it sounds like it's not that. It was deliberately fucked with. But I would think that there would be some kind of pre-flight checks to, like, I don't know, hook up a bike pump to it and put some pressure in there. And
that's the thing. So the inspection should have caught it. But I would imagine it was probably fucked with in just the right way that the pilot wouldn't notice immediately.
Right. Exactly.
So, like, that's what I'm thinking. So the pre-flight check probably should have caught it. Pilot, on the other hand, a little bit different.
Yeah.
So continuing on, the odds that this many abnormalities could accidentally or coincidentally appear in a single altimeter are extremely low. With notable understatement, the investigators concluded that such conditions undoubtedly caused excessive friction in the altimeter mechanism. The board believes that while the evidence is not conclusive, the captain's altimeter was probably reading inaccurately. There were other problems as well. The pilots chose the only lighted approach, runway 5, but it lacked both runway and identifier lights in a visual approach path indicator. VAPIs give pilots their proper flight angle and help determine altitude. The main approach, runway 23, had a VAPI, but one of the runway lights was out. That the pilots were not notified of this fault, as is customary, suggests that the light broke near to the landing time. In its opening synopsis, the NTSB report emphasized the lack of visual cues as a cause of the accident. But the synopsis is misleading. The body of the report noted that in the absence of sufficient visual cues, use of the altimeter is a necessity. And if the pilot was using the altimeter to determine the altitude during the approach, then lack of visual cues for altitude determination must be considered to have had little effect. However, an altimeter which read too high could have caused the pilot to mistakenly think that he had sufficient altitude for a safe landing. In view of the condition of the captain's altimeter, such a situation is highly possible. Aside from the altimeter, the report found no other defects in the aircraft. The Learjet was properly certified and airworthy, and there were no malfunction of the aircraft prior to the accident. Nor was there evidence of crew incapacity or error. Medical records and post-mortem examinations of the pilot and first officer found no evidence of disease or physical disability, and both crew members had been free from flight duties for approximately 24 hours prior to the flight. Captain George Evans had more than 2,000 hours of flight time on Learjets and more than 140 hours in the previous 3 months, and both pilots had flown into Pellston Airport many times under far worse conditions. An Associated Press story carried in the New York Times under the headline, quote, "No sabotage found in Reuther crash," stated that the NTSB said today that it found no indication of sabotage to explain the jet air taxi crash. The Times story is seriously misleading. In fact, the NTSB report utters not a word about sabotage one way or the other. It notes how numerous unusual defects in the altimeter may have caused a malfunction, but it says nothing about what caused the defects themselves, except to rule out crash heat as a factor in disassembling the locking screw. The report never asks whether the altimeter was tampered with, yet it proffers a good deal of evidence to suggest that it was. In effect, the investigators ignored their own findings. So that's a good place, just to take a quick stock here. Obviously, the New York Times runs a fucking piece saying, nothing to see here. Yep, there was no sabotage. And it's like, well, that's not what the report says at all. There's a whole bunch of evidence that there was sabotage. They just didn't make this determination.
Sabotage here. We read it.
Well, the New York Times is the paper of record, so I suppose that's fair.
No evidence for sabotage. You heard it here first, folks.
So I'm kind of speed reading here a little bit. I'm trying to get through this, but it's important to note that, like, the pilots were in good shape. They were experienced. There weren't other factors. And the fact that there were lights out on the runway is also suspicious. Like, why weren't the pilots told? Unless it happened right before this plane came in with a bad altimeter, during bad weather, in a very similar case to what had happened just a year and a half earlier. Things are adding up here. Things that should not have happened. And I believe coincidence is often a good, solid explanation for a lot of things. It does seem pretty unlikely here. You're
This is
like,
a lot
hey,
of them.
yeah, usually like air traffic controllers know, oh, there's a light out here. We should tell the pilots. Like they're pretty strict safety standards on flight. So
I think it's safe to say that we're edging into the territory of statistical near impossibility.
yeah,
Very much so statistical improbability. But
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the same thing happened on a flight that he was on a year and a half earlier, it's just too much. I mean, yeah, the odds are just
yeah. And remember,
Right.
Victor had been making some trouble with the CIA, if you remember correctly. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So he won the CIA's #1 journalist award.
Yes,
I
Brandon.
feel like I currently, at the time of recording, I live in Pittsburgh, and 2 or 3 days ago, the bridge collapsed shortly before President Biden came to town.
Mhm.
And everyone that I know immediately was like, this seems suspicious. And I said, no, it's not suspicious. Like when you let your infrastructure fail enough, like coincidences like this are going to happen where the president comes to town on the day that something fails. And everybody says, no, it's suspicious. And I'm coming at this from the perspective of the guy who always says, like, no, coincidences come in the places that you don't expect them. And I still feel like this is a little bit of a lot of a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, so it is important to make note of all this, where you're just like, all right, especially after we've studied the Walter Reuther story in fucking depth, it is not unreasonable to think that somebody wanted this guy dead. I mean, that's literally what the last 6 episodes have been about. How many people wanted this guy dead?
Yeah, people have literally shot him. So sabotaging an airplane does not seem far-fetched.
Yeah. So earlier on in the day of the fatal crash, the same ill-fated Learjet carrying popular singer Glenn Campbell had flown into Detroit with no report of a faulty altimeter. Again, that's pretty fucking damning. Victor Reuther noted that there was sufficient between flights for tampering with the altimeter. He also pointed out that because they have so many clients and different pilots, rental planes are inspected with unusual care and frequency. The pilots demanded as much. It is unlikely that an altimeter with 7 defects would have gone undetected if properly inspected before flight. Victor added, I was never convinced that there had been a thorough investigation by federal authorities. There had been too many direct attempts on Walter's life, and there was too much evidence of tampering with the rental plane. In a follow-up interview, Victor Reuther further noted, animosity from government had been present for some time before the fatal crash. It was not only Walter's stand on Vietnam and Cambodia that angered Nixon, but also I had exposed some CIA elements inside labor, and this was also associated with Walter. Although Walter knew I was right, he felt that I had put him in an impossible position. He said, you're taking on an agency that can forge any document to prove we are liars. But I think he was glad to see the information come out. So we did talk about that quote before. Yeah, plenty of fucking motive here. Now, checking into the vendetta is no easy task. The FBI still refuses to turn over nearly 200 pages of documents, including the copious correspondence between field offices and Hoover regarding Reuther's death. And many of the documents it has released are totally inked out. It is hard to fathom what national security concern is involved, or why the FBI and CIA must still keep so many secrets about Walter Reuther. So he mentions the John Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Senator Robert Kennedy, and dozens of leaders of the Black Panther Party and various community organizations. Whether Reuther's death was part of a broader agenda to decapitate and demoralize mass movements of that day, or whether such an agenda existed at all, are questions that go beyond the scope of our inquiry. But Victor's belief, shared by Walter's daughter, Elizabeth Reuther, Dick Meyer, and other members of the family, that the crash was no accident, does not seem implausible. Despite the limited investigation, there is enough evidence to suggest that foul play was involved. The death of this dedicated and effective progressive labor leader raises disquieting questions about the criminal nature of state power in what purports to be a democracy. And that is the end of the article there. So I wanted to go through just because I think Parenti puts it into words better than I was ever going to. Yeah, there was a motive for the state to kill him, and there was plenty of means. This has state involvement written all over it. I've noted previously that there were obviously plenty of capitalists that wanted Walter dead. There was also real tensions with organized crime. So the mob, in many instances, did want Walter dead, or they wanted control of unions and stuff. Walter stood in their way in some cases, and plenty wanted him dead, I'm sure. So if this was foul play, no one can say for sure who did it. But generally speaking, when the mob wants you dead, they shoot you or drown you or whatever. They're pretty traditional fucking murders.
Mm-hmm.
And when capitalists want you dead, they get the job done. Okay. When the state wants you dead, the state wants to make it look like a fucking accident. And
I'm sorry, you have said that when the state wants you dead and when capitalists want you dead, and I don't understand the distinction.
So here's the distinction I will make in this story. When Harry Bennett wanted Walter dead, he sent two jackasses into a fucking party to go kidnap him in front of hundreds of people. Versus the plane altimeter, which went unnoticed at inspection, and then later also lights happened to be out at the runway. There seems like there is a very different level of like what's involved in these kinds of murders, if they are murders. You know what I'm saying? So like when the CIA gets involved, or the FBI, or I don't know, some agency I haven't heard of, they are pretty good about making things look like accidents. And there are a lot of very big, important figures to the left who die in accidents, many of which are likely coincidences, but it happens to a lot of leftists. It really does. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
We're very depressed people. We often shoot ourselves 2, 3, maybe even 4 times in the back of the head.
Who says we don't have work ethic?
I saw where that joke was going.
Well, sometimes we're so depressed we can't just stop shooting. That's all I'm getting at. It's not the FBI coming into my home.
Or the police who got rid of your dog who was protecting you from potential gunmen, you know.
Don't make me go on a rant about the police. I hate them enough.
Okay, ACAB, we'll leave it at that. So that is the discussion of Walter Reuther's death, suggests foul play, and I'd like to point out that all the fucking anti-communism and all the reform and all the playing by the rules, and look at where it got Walter, and look at where it got us. Just saying. Mike, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, just the last thing I would like to say about his death is that how many layers of institutions have to be involved in ruling that an accident? Because I don't think that it's the NTSB's purview to rule it, whether it's an accident or, you know, homicide or anything. But obviously there's law enforcement. There's a lot of levels of people involved that should rule that. And look at this obvious evidence that we're all looking at just from a fucking article with Michael Parenti.
I would imagine they were too busy high-fiving.
Right.
Like, so yes, this is a good point to also like obviously be grateful for Michael Parenti's looking into this topic. Michael Parenti's words on Walter Reuther, probably the reason I got into this study at all in the first place. And I think he really added a lot to the story. So I am happy to be carrying on that story to probably a younger audience than it's seen in the past. But I think it is, to me, terrifying how little most people know about this story. And it wasn't like that long ago. Like Walter Reuther was a household name and now no one knows who the fuck he was.
Yeah.
I think that's, for me, that was a big takeaway.
I think there's 2 big takeaways from that. There's the takeaway that like labor leaders just, even if you are pro Walter Reuther, like if everything that he has said and done completely vibes with your outlook on life, what's the likelihood that you remember him? Because there are a lot of labor leaders that are not as romanticized as your House Speaker, your president, vice president, so on and so forth. They are just not the characters in the story that get romanticized. And so I think the first takeaway is learn who your fucking union leaders are. And like I'm as guilty as the next guy. Like,
oh, me too.
I know who. Yeah,
we'll be addressing that in a little bit. But yeah, that's, to me, I thought that was disturbing, where I'm like, as much labor history as I know, everything I know is big picture stuff. I don't know the characters. I don't know who the people were or what they did. And learning through this, I was like, damn, there is a lot here that has been forgotten among leftists too. Which, in our defense, we have a lot of fucking history to learn. We have to learn other fucking countries. We got to learn way more history than anybody else has to learn. We got to read all these fucking books. It is easy to forget
the stuff you were taught.
Yeah, there is a lot of work involved in being on the left. But I think we all, and I listen to podcasts a lot. You know, I don't always have the time to like read the theory and stuff. So I'm happy to listen to people give me the takeaways, right? And I hear a lot of people talk about how we need to build union power and like, okay, unions are important. Unions are important. What are we going to do? The problem is you're like, all right, well, I'm not in a union though. Like, what are we going to do? And I think one of the first things you can do is like learning history like this is like, okay, what can we take from this and then go forward? So does anybody else have any like brief thoughts before I go into some of the questions I wanted to discuss?
If you're going into the questions, bud, let's hear them.
Okay. So these are mostly the questions I've reiterated kind of a few times throughout the series, but I think they're worth discussing a little bit, at least briefly here. So how should we think about the dynamic between getting power within the capitalist system and building movements outside the centers of power? And I kind of add on to this, is having influence with presidents and politicians worth anything?
No, it's not. Fuck them.
I agree. Does anyone else have some thoughts here on, you know, how do we, because I do feel like there is this, to a certain degree, we probably need some legislation. Like, I think we need some legislative solutions to start attacking Taft-Hartley. You know, take something like the PRO Act, right? I think it would be objectively good if we had proper union legislation.
I almost worry that we get wrapped up in the history of things. Like, man, I follow Mike online enough to know that, like, you know, we get a little bit wrapped up in the history of the Soviet Union and we ignore the bad things that were legitimately done.
True.
If there were bad things, sure.
Yeah, when I find them, I'll let you know. But
yeah, I'm not trying to start a fight here. I mean, if you want to fight, sure, let's go. But more to the point, I worry about like getting lost in the history and forgetting where we're at right now in the present. And the present says, you know, I had a point that I was going to make, but I'm very drunk. And honestly, the history it very much aligns with the present.
I mean, so I think it's incredibly important that we learn from the history, and I'm trying to say, where should we be going next? Like, what can we take away, and how can we apply it today?
I mean, yeah, like what we were talking about at the beginning, like the railroad union voted to go on strike, and then the judge is like, nope, sorry, you can't, fuck you. Like, there's only so much they'll allow you to do in the system, and sometimes you have to go outside the system and, you know, build people power rather than like political power.
Agreed.
To actually accomplish these things. Now, I mean, you know, maybe if there's a legislative solution to this kind of thing, great. Like, that's awesome. I'm not going to like.
Solution is a very big word.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be something that gets watered down by Nancy Pelosi and
not even that. I don't think there is any legislative solution. I think there are ways in which legislation can make unions stronger, which can build people power.
There you go. Yeah.
But I also think that, like, in a previous episode, like how we had talked about how the labor movement kind of attached itself to the Democratic Party without any conditions. And so I think it's like, hey, if they're going to like support union legislation, cool, do it. But like, I'm not going to tell people to vote for you. You're not going to get our endorsement. But like I said before, buy a politician. They're fucking cheap. They're very inexpensive. They get a fucking $2,000 check from some company and they're writing legislation for them. AFL-CIO, where the fuck are you? Buy a politician. I mean, come on. State reps, who gives a fuck? People you've never heard of. Go buy them. They will write legislation. Call it bipartisan. Who gives a fuck? Put an amendment in there that takes aim at the Taft-Hartley Act. So, like, there are.
Can I interject a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just saying there's ways to use this power in which you're not making yourself beholden to like some idiot capitalist party, but like get shit done. Like I'm okay with whatever tactic you got as long as you get something fucking done. Go ahead, Brandon.
I think there's a lot of tactics that can fall into the purview of what you were just saying. And all that it ultimately boils down to is get to know your coworker. Like, I'm finally blessed with being in a union. And I'm very close to already doing things that are outside of what the union considers acceptable. And I'm cool with that. Like, if they kick me out, they kick me out. But, like, get to know your fellow workers. Stand up for them. There comes a certain point where it doesn't matter that everything that you're saying is outside of the purview of the union itself. If every one of your coworkers has your back, that's a win, dude.
I agree. I just think we do need to get the unions to be more like you, is what I think. So,
like me?
Well,
like
relatively speaking,
or...
like hammered off their face.
Well, anyway, yes, like you in many ways, not always. But next question here on the list: how should we think about political education for union membership? Is it better to have larger unions or more radical members? I don't know what people's thoughts are on that, but anybody got anything on that?
Yes, there's an intersection between the two.
Correct.
Beyond that, I've got nothing.
I don't think it'd be a problem to have a larger base as long as you're still moving them towards radicalization. But it's like if you have a larger base and then as a result you're moving towards centrism or basically towards the right, then yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot that way.
But moving towards centrism from the far right is still progress.
Oh, I mean, if that's where you're starting, yeah.
Well, I think what you're kind of getting at is almost the liberal approach versus the radical approach. You can, as a radical, get regular, centrist, even conservative working people on board with the union and work towards, okay, well, let's work with what we have in common. We want better wages, better working conditions. Everyone can agree to that. But like the liberal version is like, well, if we want to appeal to these people, we have to be like fucking weird transphobes and racists and shit. And you're like, no, wrong lesson. That's not it. No. So I think you're kind of spot on there, Mike.
That's where it gets into the very difficult territory of like, you can't back down from what you believe.
I agree. I think you should be out front with what you believe. And I think it would help if we had more socialist and communist labor organizers who were clear and like, I'm a communist. You don't have to agree with me and you don't have to like communism, but I'm going to win you a fucking better wage. I'm going to make your workplace better. And when people start realizing that it's the communists who are fighting for them, that is a very good position to be in. Brian, you had something.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I was going to say, you know, the approach that Reuther took with the civil rights movement was interesting because he was going against a lot of the largely white membership of his union in what they wanted, but he was also kind of going with a much milder, softer version of the civil rights movement than what a lot of the black members of his union wanted, like the people in Drum. And they rightly called him out for it. You know, he wasn't going far enough. And so by trying to appease the moderates, he really didn't get a whole lot done. I mean, he did definitely support the civil rights movement in the sort of official channels, the mainstream part of it, but, you know, not the radical, you know, people on the ground with actual problems.
Yes. I think one of the things we can kind of learn is that Walter did actually explicitly ask how far in front of the membership can the union leaders go? How progressive can I be? Right? And I think the answer to that question is you could be as fucking progressive, as socialist, as whatever you fucking want. There really aren't consequences. You can be as far left as you want.
Have your back. You can say what you want to say.
Yeah, you can be out as far in front of your union membership as you can possibly be. And the farther out left you are, the more left your union will be. Your members will follow. Because we talked about how there was rampant racism within the UAW, and yet when it came to civil rights actions, there was no bigger contingent present than UAW members. When the leadership is out in front and very clearly speaking to what they believe in, the membership follows. And so I think that that is an important thing, is like, there aren't consequences to not capitulating to the moderates in your union. Fuck them, right? Drag them along. They like the wage. They like the better working conditions. If they don't, they can leave the union. Okay,
And confirm.
go make less. Go ahead.
It's kind of like all these Democrats are like, oh, we don't want to say that scary S word, the socialism word. You know, we're going to be moderate. And it's like, well, the conservatives are going to think that you're commies anyways. Like, who fucking cares? Just be a communist.
Yeah.
Just do it. Come on.
And so I think this goes to what can the unions do today, but I think political education is probably an important thing because there's a lot of workers today who are represented by unions and don't understand any labor history, don't know why they have their benefits. They think literally they're like, oh, the union's just taking my dues and whatever. And sometimes it's hard to blame them for thinking that because a lot of unions kind of are losing. They kind of suck and they're not doing what they're supposed to do because they're not radical. But like, I think that if unions were getting on front of like, hey, once a month, we have a class on political ideologies. And you don't have to be a communist, but if you're curious about, here's what socialism is, here's what communists did in the labor movement, like you could move people to the left if they fucking knew. If they actually understood what was going on, they would move to the left. And when your membership moves left, the union has more power.
Can I jump in quick? Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to kind of summarize what I think of pretty much everyone is saying in the dumb guy terms that I understand things in, is that if you consider yourself at all left of center, even slightly, moving to the right in any way, shape, or form will do nothing but lose people to the left of you. It will never, ever gain anyone to the right of you. Never.
100%. 100%.
The only thing it's going to do is lose people to the left. That's it.
I have a car analogy for this. You know, if
here we go. This is what we're here for.
Yes.
If you're driving in the left lane and people are passing you on the right, that means you fucked up. Move over to the right and let people pass you on the left. That's how it's supposed to work. And if people on the left,
fuck up.
If people on the left are criticizing you from the left, then maybe you fucked up. You know.
Yeah,
like
get out of the left lane, move it. Okay.
Yeah.
I hate to say that's completely accurate, but that's completely fucking accurate.
Thank you.
If people to the left of you are criticizing your position, you don't need to criticize back. You need to introspect about your own position.
True.
Exactly.
I like it. Then I've also got here, how should we think about the very real pressures placed on unions by the global capitalist system? Since capital can move abroad and workers can't, and competition is undeniably global between workers and businesses, unions seem to be in an ever-weakening position by default. How can we address these realities in the future? That's sort of a tough one, but does anybody have any thoughts on it?
I mean, personal anecdote. I'm somebody who works in a union. Been a union member for 11 years now. And hold on, my mic's fucking up. Give me 1 second here.
While Mark was saying that, oh god,
There we go. What's up?
I was gonna say if we just kill more workers with pandemics, then there'll be less of us, and then we can drive up our wages.
Oh Jesus!
You want to talk history? We're gonna say like we need like some sort of bubonic plague to cause guilds to rise up again.
Mercantilism, and then we'll get to capitalism. So maybe if we have another couple like really bad plagues, then we can move into some sort of thing where we actually give a shit about workers.
Yeah.
Like this one wasn't bad enough. We need to kill more.
We need to kill a third of America, and then in 800 years we'll have socialism, maybe?
Nah. It wouldn't even work like that.
It would be democratic socialism at best.
Sorry, Mark.
Oh yeah, so like just something as easy as the quit your union postcards that I probably get one of them a week.
What? The what? Excuse me?
You don't get. So there's obviously ever since with the Janus decision, right? It basically decided that you can't charge.
Oh, yep. The right to work.
Yeah, when I first joined, everybody in my employment has to be at least a partial union member. So you can pay 100% dues or you can pay 80% dues, right? But the Janus Supreme Court decision basically made that illegal. So everybody in my union gets mailed these postcards, probably at least one or two a month. We get these postcards in the mail where if you fill out your name and your ID, your information on it, the postcards have a self-addressed stamp on it that it will be mailed to my union, so basically CWA. So this third party political action committee sends out emails and postcards all the time saying like, hey, if you fill out this postcard and mail it, you'll quit your union and they'll stop taking out your union dues. So something that I always do is I know when I get one in the mail, everybody else in my office has gotten the mail, and I talk to them about, hey, did you get that postcard in the mail? Like, this is bullshit and this is what it's about. Yeah. And just having those conversations, it seems like a simple thing, but just having those conversations is that kind of coalition building that you guys have been talking about before. Doesn't seem like a big win, but like telling people not to quit your union and explaining why you're getting this mail and who it's coming from just kind of opens people's eyes to, these are the forces at play. They want you to quit your union and this is why you need it.
Yikes. Jesus.
Also, just like I could say, New Jersey kind of had I know it's been like Debbie Downer a lot of this episode, but New Jersey had a pretty cool legislative win recently, partially because of the actions of the union that I'm in. New Jersey passed, I don't think it's been signed by the governor yet, but it's passed the state assembly and state senate. It's called the Responsible Collective Negotiations Act. People should look into it. It's kind of cool. It expands the scope of bargaining for state government employees. So
good, because they are very limited.
Yes. And that same act also on a state level allows the union to charge non-union members for the cost of arbitration. So it's a little push and pull. It's like, hey, this law is going to allow my union to negotiate a broader array of issues. And it kind of gives the union more teeth to pull people in again, because it's like, hey, we're going to charge you one way or the other. So you might as well be a full employee and get the full benefits,
Yeah.
Like CWA doing good work, at least where I live.
And CWA is, who's that again?
It's Communication Workers of America.
Okay.
They are a national, and I think they even have, I think they're in Germany too. Yeah, I think they're in Frankfurt and they're in London also. But yeah, it's a wide array of communication workers. So a lot of Verizon, if you're in a union for Verizon, you're CWA. Flight attendants are in CWA. I'm in government communications.
Gotcha.
So some public health care, some like broadcast people. CWA has been doing good work. And yeah, they're pretty out in front about being, at least having a progressive facing agenda outside of the workforce. Like they've definitely been talking about the PRO Act. They were showing up during all of the racial injustice protests of the past 2 summers, essentially. So while it seems like the sky is falling and the capitalists are always going to win, on a personal level, I've been feeling the power of the unions. Been definitely feel like I have somebody in my corner when it comes to negotiating for pay and working conditions and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
We currently have a grievance against the state of New Jersey because they haven't come up with a plan to build remote working into a contract. So I think that's going to be a major sticking point in our next negotiation. But like currently we at least like are taking the first steps. We filed a grievance saying like the workers have demonstrated the ability to perform as good of a service, whether they're in their offices or working remotely. So we're going to file a grievance and make you take action on it. Like,
that's sweet. I hope that more unions kind of take note of that. That's a good thing to fight for. Yeah. I do think that recently we've started to see the bubbling up of union power finally. Like it's been asleep for all this time, which is again why I think this story is important to tell now. Like we have to what are we going to do going forward? How are we going to fix things? So then last question I have here is kind of one of my favorites. How should we think about quote unquote legality in future labor struggles? If the game is rigged by the ruling class and lawmakers, can anything be gained by playing by the rules, such as how Walter did it? What alternatives might exist and what might be the costs of abandoning these notions of legality? So to me, I look at the number of times that unions file a grievance with the NLRB and say, this company was doing unfair labor practices during this union election. And what do they get for that? They get another election. But I forget what the statistic is, but I think it is in 70 or 80% of cases, the second union election after that, the union does worse. the vast majority of times, the union gets fucked the second time around. So to me, I'm going, okay, let's say the union instead tried to do something illegal. What would be the consequence if they did an unfair labor practice? What would the NLRB do? Say you lost? Motherfuckers, you lose every time anyway. You're in the same fucking boat.
Yeah.
So to me, I want to say, I want to fucking win. That to me is, I'm like, yo, I want to win. So why are we following these fucking rules? And even if we weren't, okay, make them prove it, right? It's hard to prove that a company did an unfair labor practice. It's so hard to prove that it was intentional, what they actually did. It's all secret emails and shit. So put the companies in the same boat, right? You think we did this illegal thing? Okay, well, what evidence you got? Fucking prove it. To me, that's just, I don't see there's that many consequences for bending the rules a little bit and maybe not having such a clean nose or whatever, you know. Any other thoughts from folks on legality? Yeah, Brian.
Nothing really on legality. Something on the last question just made me think of like how Saudi Arabia is exporting Wahhabist Islam to all these different countries by building mosques and whatnot and importing imams. And I was just thinking, like, what if there was, you know, a group or say China or someone who was like, you know, building union halls and like starting unions in all these other countries to like build worker power? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would look like, but I think it would be cool.
I mean, I think on the legality front, anything you've been seeing out of unions has been kind of a loss lately. I mean, I think of something that's a little hyperlocal. IBEW, right? Johnny Doherty and Bobby Heenan are going to jail. Not saying everything they did was good, but like they were guys that were pretty big advocates for the electrical union in Philadelphia. And they were kind of involved with the Verizon strike a little bit. What would have been on a Verizon strike in Philadelphia. And one of them's facing a 20-year sentence.
Ouch.
Yeah. So like, again, you want to talk about like, hey, all right, maybe we got some, you know, politically connected guys in a major metropolitan area that can kind of advocate on the side of labor. And it's like, the second they start kind of crossing the line, they get clapped.
So I don't know this story specifically, but I don't know what line of legality that they cross necessarily. But like, go ahead.
They were, so long story short, they were charged with misusing union funds, which it's complicated.
Yeah.
And the other thing was basically corrupting a public official. So like, all right, if I'm a business and I want to put a politician in my pocket, all I need to do is send them a campaign donation.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm confused as to why they would do anything besides that. The bribes
Right.
are legal. Why would you illegally do it? It's legal.
It seems like it's one set of rules for, you know, labor and it's another set of rules for capital. I mean, Bobby Heenan and Johnny Doherty have some, you know, they're going to go to jail for honest services fraud probably. But like when a business
so careful
does
with the money.
it makes sense. Yeah.
Careful with the money. Careful on anything with a paper trail. However, beyond that, that's what I'm getting at. For example, and you can bleep this if you want, but I want to leave it in. I'm just saying, when management starts pressuring people about, oh, don't join the union, oh, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. I just think it would be cool if they got their fucking tires slashed. Or, for example, if in the process of preparing to paint your Miata, for example, where I did say the best way to remove paint is chemical stripper. Now, let's say you parked your Miata nearby a car for management and you accidentally spilled chemical stripper on their brand new BMW.
Well, that's just an unfortunate coincidence.
An unfortunate coincidence
it
that
can't
it
be
happened
stopped.
when they're union busting. I'm just saying, and maybe the union leaders don't have to write that in an email, but you know, little wink, wink, nod, nod. Go ahead and prove that I said accidentally go and trip with a knife in your hand near the tires of the boss who's threatening you. You know, who's to say?
But here's the problem, right? Like, there's a material sense in which so many people are scared of losing their damn jobs. And like what Mark was saying is the hammer will come down on them hard. Meanwhile, mailboxes can get tampered with for union elections. And as long as it's a major corporation doing it, nothing happens. Oh, we get a redo.
Yeah.
We have as workers too much to lose.
It is a tough question. And I don't think that we're necessarily going to solve it on this podcast, but like, I want to put it into the minds of people like, we have to address this. We have to think about how do we get around in a system in which the rules are not applied fairly.
I agree with you.
What can we do? And that's why I keep asking that question. I don't know the answer. I'm not a labor organizer. But if you call yourself a labor organizer, you should be thinking about this question. You should be thinking about how do we go forward from here? And that's what I'm trying to, impress upon people. And there could be someone listening to this set of episodes who might one day be a labor leader themselves. And I would hope that they have some kind of thoughts on this question. That's pretty much all the questions that I wanted to go through in this, like, what are our takeaways kind of section. And I wanted to make some actual tangible suggestions, like for how we can move forward. And so, as promised, I entitled this section, and I can see Brandon's gone from his computer, but whatever. I think he would appreciate this too. I entitled this section, "What is to be done?"
Hey, know a guy who had a few things.
So I know, Mike, you did have some suggestions, so I actually would like to hear yours. I think that first one you mentioned about the quote-unquote Black Strike Fund. Awesome. Fucking excellent idea. What else you got up your sleeve?
Kind of related to that is something that has been rolling around in my mind for a long time since I read A People's History of the United States, the Howard Zinn book. And I've been meaning to revisit it, and if I had done any show prep for today, I would have tried to find the section that talks about this thing. Apparently, at some point, there was a union or an organization of some kind that was providing basically a place that anyone could go to for about $2 a day at the time. Like, it was the equivalent of $2 a day. It's probably 2 cents at that point. And you could just be there all day. You could just exist. And it literally was just to take the pressure off of the worker of capitalism that commodifies your very existence. Like, if you have a place that you can just go and exist for the entire day for a reasonable amount of money that you could either get somehow or just even panhandle, that takes a whole lot of pressure off. And then I feel like that's something that could be done. And I think you can already anticipate the hurdles that would happen. Like, you'd have to make sure that it doesn't get infiltrated and used to the purposes of the capitalists and right-wingers, of course, because you're going to have disaffected people of all kinds who are going to gravitate to this place. So you have to make sure that you're not getting a bunch of like alt-right fuckheads coming in there with their rhetoric. So you have to kind of from the outset state that this is a place that accepts everyone and will not tolerate any kind of bigotry. And that right there will prevent anything from happening. And if you can make it so that it intentionally pushes people left, that right there, I think, would be a huge step in radicalizing a huge part of the working force. Because how useful would it have been during the pandemic if you had a place that you could go and you don't have to worry about if you're getting evicted?
I think actually kind of related to that, I've noticed that past generations, like my parents' generation and stuff, they have social clubs and stuff. They do little fundraisers and stuff, but they have a meeting place and they have useless meetings about useless things, but they also have fun. They play cards, they shoot pool, they do whatever, and they run little tournaments and shit. And I think if you could have a leftist version of that, just a national social club where it's like, oh, there's a little branch in your town, and
what now?
The what?
A national social club, you say?
Oh, okay, shit. Okay, hold on. Different thing.
Maybe rethink that word, Connor. I don't know.
Well, and so if there was a local place to you, like I'm going to, whatever they have, they've got Lions clubs and Mustangs clubs and whatever the fuck else. If there was a leftist version of that.
To your point, I just want to say that our parents' generation, it's a known statistic. There were more people of that generation, there were more of them in just bowling leagues alone than there are of millennials and Gen Z in all social clubs combined. Like any kind of organization that you would take part in, whether it's like fucking roller derby, autocross, whatever the fuck. They had more people in bowling leagues alone than all of those that we have today.
Yeah.
Atomized. We're an atomized society. We're all on our own. That's capitalism on a philosophical level. We all need our own homes. We all need our own cars. We all need our own little basements to play video games.
If I have to borrow a tool from you, it means I have failed as an individual.
Exactly. If you are 30 and you have to live in your parents' house, you're a failure. This is the philosophical like outcomes of all this, and that's why like mutual aid seems like such a foreign concept. We're all, there's 7 of us on this, and we're all sitting states away from each other because we want to grasp out and reach to people that are like us, but we're not in a hall down the street because everyone's tied to TV in their own home, in their own little bubble.
Yeah. So I think like political organizations are a good thing to join, but also we should have leftist social clubs where we could just meet and hang out, have a fucking beer. I think that would be cool.
And maybe not even talk about politics, just talk about like existing, you know?
Yeah. Bryant, and then Mike, you had something too.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, in our parents' or maybe grandparents' generation, a lot of those spaces were union halls. That was the social place for people to hang out. And, you know, like, I don't know how to recreate that exactly. I think the closest thing that we have to that existing right now, that's just a public place that you can go without being expected to pay money for something, is the public library. And I get a lot of library books because I don't like paying for books, and or movies for that matter. I get DVDs at the library and then copy them onto my hard drive because it's easier than dealing with BitTorrent. But anyways, whenever I'm at the library, I see teenagers playing Fortnite and like old people checking Facebook on the computers there. Like, if you don't have anywhere else to go and you don't have a lot of money, like, go to the library and hang out on the computer. What if we had something like that for left-wing people, union people, whatever? I don't know what shape that would be exactly, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Mike, you had something?
I think the idea of a place where you can just go and exist for very little to no money, I think the goal of that should be outright to attract people who are obviously disaffected, who really need that, but then to constantly improve it. Try to make it a place that people actually want to go. Like, try to make that preferable. And if you can do that, if you actually had a network of those that existed around the country and kept in touch with each other and constantly shared tactics on how to beat the law enforcement when the city tries to nitpick you about whatever code they possibly can to shut you down, because that's absolutely what's going to happen at the first opportunity. Once you start taking money out of the business owners' pockets in every city, they are going to go after you with every force that they possibly can. So it would be necessary to organize these and share tactics how to combat that. But like I said, make it something that people actually want to do. I mean, there's so many things you could do with something like that. And you could make it so that it's not just keeping people in a shelter, hopefully feeding them, but then maybe it could also be hooking them up with long-term housing or jobs or something that, you know, can actually help improve their material conditions. And then an extension of that could also be like something for the people who are doing okay but still feel this alienation. I forget again what socialist organization it was, but they were renting out halls and having the citizens come there, and they would just teach them Marxism. They would just literally just talk to them. And in layman's terms, I tell them, like, this is why you're feeling this way. This is why you don't have any time to get all the errands done. This is why you really can't get ahead financially, even though you're working all these long hours. It's like the things that are actually affecting people's daily lives and the things that they are really feeling on that gut level. And if you brought people together and talked to them about these things, you could wake up a lot of people, provided you from the outset keep that from going into reactionary territory.
You know, it's funny, man. You know, the closest place that I've gotten to that is I went to Mark, get your beer ready because you're gonna have to drink.
Oh, shit.
I went to a punk rock show.
Take a drink.
And it was in a basement, and you know, some girl sang about getting over addiction and dealing with a bunch of super personal issues. But it was in somebody's basement, and it's not a venue. But like, you know, I paid like $5 to get in the door so the band could make a little bit of money.
It's always $5.
And then you know, I paid a couple dollars for a beer that went to the house. You know, it was a group. I guarantee you, everybody in there was pretty fucking lefty. And you go in there with $10 in your pocket, you can get 2 beers and you can go see a show. You know, and those are the kind of spaces. It doesn't have to be this thing where it's I've rented a hall and I'm going to do everything by the book. No, it can be a punk show in a basement. You know, it can be 6 blocks from your house, and it can be 20 kids, you know, that are kind of sweaty and stinky and may have some drug problems, but, you know, like maybe working on getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
The only reason I mentioned the halls and that level of organization.
Yeah, that wasn't a dig at you, Mike.
No, I totally get it, because you're right. And I think organically, if it took off that way from punk shows, that would be fantastic. I just wanted to get past the point where when it actually starts becoming effective and actually starts posing a threat to any, like local capital.
Oh, yeah.
They are able to resist that because they're organized and they know how to do it. Because that's where things like Chaz and every other like kind of horizontal project just kind of falls apart.
No, we're gonna need just a really big basement, like the biggest basement you can find.
Yeah, that's what's held the punk movement down, the lefty punks, is that we haven't developed a large enough basement yet. Once we get basement physics figured out at a massive scale, y'all better
Time
watch
Lord
out.
science there. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
We just need to connect every basement in one neighborhood to each other and have like a series of basements.
An underground network of basements.
Yes. The basement underground.
Brian,
I was just going to say that reminds me that a few months ago there was a real estate listing for an old missile silo in Colorado. That would be the world's largest
I
basement,
box
I
at the
think.
door, baby.
Yo. How much was it? Was it absurd? I'm sure.
It was under $1 million.
Okay.
Wait, so $5 divided by $1 million.
Yeah.
How many?
So I did write down some suggestions again to point out that unions could do a lot of shit that they're not currently doing, and I think we should expect a little bit more from the unions that exist today. So kind of one of the big ones that I want to get out of the way first, just because I think a lot of the other things would follow from it, is to bring back the flying squadron. The flying squadron that I could swear I mentioned it when we were talking about the 1930s organizing efforts, but the flying squadron was like the non-union member supporters of the union who would, when, the police were there, whatever, they would go and picket with the workers. So the flying squadron existed. It was a semi-illegal thing, but like it was just a loose organization of people who supported the union. Bring that back. Like when unions represent like whatever it is, 6% of the working population, I'm pretty sure there are more people who actually support the unions than who are in unions. What do we do, right? I'm not a union worker. What can I do, right? I'm not in the union. They don't represent me. They don't do shit. And I think the unions in general need to kind of shift their focus from representing their membership to representing workers in general, to like broaden like what they're actually doing. Because it's like, hey, your membership is becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of the working population. And I think they really need to start engaging people who are left out of that. So like myself, right? I'd love to help, but I'm not in a union. What can I fucking do? And I think that unions have really let the ball drop, where it's like, hey, you have all these people ready and willing to help you. Where are you? Do you not want the help? I don't get it. So like this could exist both online and in the street. I think technology gives the flying squadron more potential than it has ever had in the past. And we saw what it can do in some of the earlier struggles. People could pay dues to help fund labor actions and shit like that. Or if it was online, like you could have a small labor action for a union that represents 1,000 workers and have 20,000 people involved in online campaigns. Like that would amplify union power tremendously if we could focus it. And so someone just needs to set up these networks. Should probably be like the AFL-CIO. Like, come on, get your shit together. And so like a flying squadron would enable things like bringing back workplace sabotage. I don't think we see enough of that anymore, but that used to be very effective. Or things like boycott signs at the point of sale. So like, think about how this could have been used in the Kellogg's strike, for example. Most average people had no idea that they were crossing the picket line during the strike. They need to be told when boycotts are happening or the boycotts don't fucking work. Obviously, unions need to do a better job getting the word out. So like, if you go to the grocery store, no one can stop you from going in with a little tiny sign to stick on the Kellogg's cereal aisle to just say, hey, Kellogg's workers are on strike and they're requesting a boycott until they get better working conditions. How many people who aren't even radical, who aren't even whatever, would be like, oh, I should pick a different cereal? You don't need to be a fucking communist to support this kind of stuff. And so, sure, I myself could do this, right? I can make this little sign and put it up, and that's fine and dandy. I stop 10 people from buying cereal. But like, if the union could get the word out through something like a flying squadron online, where they knew, oh, hey, we pre-made these little cards. Go ahead and put them up in the grocery store. Or whatever the fuck it is. Your little sign that says, hey, Kellogg's workers are on strike. Or Nabisco
Actually,
workers
is a
are
really
on
good
strike.
idea.
But like, someone has to get the word out. And I'd like to also point out that I get the word from lefty fucking meme pages. That's embarrassing. That is downright embarrassing.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Like, right? Like, so it's like, hey, AFL-CIO, all the resources in the fucking world, and I have to hear about this shit from Turn Leftist 1917. Not a dig at you guys, by the way. That's
Even to like a mailer, right? Like,
yes.
you know, use the tactic that Mark was talking about earlier, where he gets a mailer to be anti-unionist. Send mailers out. Like, hey, Kellogg's is on strike. Send it out to areas that would be affected. I don't know. Send it to New York City and to Philadelphia and to San Antonio. Say, hey, these people are on strike for this reason. Don't buy Kellogg's.
Yeah.
Phil, that sounds dangerously close to secondary boycott, which is strictly illegal by the Taft-Hartley Act.
Here's the thing. So the secondary strike is made illegal by the Taft-Hartley Act for other unions to support the strikes or to strike a parent company of the company which they are aggrieved by. It does nothing to stop people like us from taking action. You're a fucking citizen. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You can say whatever the hell you want. Or, for example, if there was a flying squadron, I, a fucking citizen, non-union member, could go pick it outside a dealership if the UAW is on strike.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
So like the union members can't do it, but I fucking can. And if I can get a few fucking friends, we could do that. And so a part of me wants to ask the question, hey, labor leaders, why is it that some idiot on a podcast is coming up with this? These are real suggestions made in earnest. Like, you have options. You need to do it because what y'all have been doing for the last 80 years has not been working. And through our study of Walter Reuther, we can see that, like, hey, we tried it this way and it was a good attempt. It was the best attempt that you could come up with and it didn't work. So what are we going to do now? How are we going to utilize pro-union sentiment for non-union members to get involved, right? Like, the AFL-CIO, if they wanted today, could set up a donate link. I could pay monthly for them to have some fucking funds. They could set up a Patreon, for fuck's sake. $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever the fuck it is. I would like to put my money into this movement. And I think it would be helpful if other people could too. And I think there's a lot of willing participants to do that. So I don't want to hear anymore, oh, we just don't have the money. Oh, our strike funds are too low. Bro, are you asking for fucking money? Try that. Well, what the fuck are you doing?
Seriously.
Do something.
Yeah.
And I think we've been very critical of Walter Reuther through this study for good reason. But I think he was a smart labor organizer who probably by this time would have figured shit out. Like, all right, this is not working. We need to come up with a new tactic because that's what he was good at. And that is kind of why I'm making these suggestions. Like, they are in the spirit of our study of Walter Reuther, is like, tactics are important.
Yeah.
We could also do shit like bad online reviews en masse. Go ahead. The company can't stop 500,000 people from leaving bad reviews on their shit. Awful social media campaigns. So we could just wreck their fucking marketing department. We could do that if we had some kind of organization to do it. We could use frivolous lawsuits. So we can make it extremely costly for them to do business. And we could use discovery in court to dig up dirt on these companies. We could have worker lawsuits en masse. Yeah, Brian.
I was going to suggest something illegal, so feel free to bleep this out. But make a pirate radio station, do a Max Headroom, and talk shit about them on the drive time radio station or whatever, you know?
You could do that. They could also set up legitimate radio stations, or even, which they did do. The UAW did do that, and it didn't work out super well, but like, we could try that again. I think that.
I mean, also, I don't know where you guys are located, but in larger cities, there's hyper local radio stations.
Yep.
Even small radio stations like college level, that would be a great place to talk about like a local strike, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be big actions. It could be like, hey, everybody walked out of this sub shop because they're getting treated like shit. Don't go to that sub shop until they actually deal with these people better.
And I think we need to have unions that develop some kind of a media strategy, right? We've been facing 100 years of sophisticated propaganda. Hey, assholes, time to wake up. Do something. Like, what are you talking? Get your fucking version of events out there. What are you doing? Buy ads on TV. Okay. Stop letting them trash you because the companies buy ads. It's like, well, you could buy ads too. In fact, that would be great. YouTube ads and Facebook ads, I'm pretty sure, are actually very affordable. How many people are just not thinking about unions at all? Do a fucking commercial. Now, I know everyone thinks, oh, commercials don't work. They don't work on me. I'm immune to advertising. No, you're not. No one is. Literally nobody is. The point of advertising is not to be like, you're like, I know what you're thinking. Oh, but when this ad comes on, I hate their company. It's like, yeah, cool. But did you think about their company? Yeah, you did. That's what advertising is about. So remind people that you exist. Oh, are you having trouble at work? Are your conditions not very good? Could your pay be a little bit higher? Call us. We'll help. Whatever the fuck it is. Who cares? I'm not a marketing person, but I know enough to say it would help if you did like a little. Just a thought. So another tactic I've got here is like using the company's bullshit against them, like the money back guarantee. You know, how much would it cost to process millions of returns from quote unquote unsatisfied customers? I mean, you pick up a product, you look at the back and it says 100% money back guarantee if you're not satisfied. Cool. So when the workers are on strike, I mean, a lot of these products, you could go to the grocery store, you could buy 4 of them for very little money and return all of them and say you're not satisfied. The companies put that on the back because they think you're not going to use it. Nobody's doing money back guarantees, right? So they put it on the back because it's a marketing thing. But if you actually send shit back, it's super fucking costly to them. To send one of these things back for a money back guarantee would be the equivalent of them losing like 40, 50 sales. Now, if we use that as a tactic against them, that's going to fucking hurt. So that's kind of the thing, is like, we need to think outside the box a little bit. Now, another thing, this actually comes from Walter Reuther himself. Walter pledged a large donation to another union's strike fund every month for the duration of a strike. That should be replicated and expanded today. So in this case, it was the United Farm Workers. I think it was in 1965. In fact, the AFL-CIO should maintain a large shared strike fund. They could make a Patreon and have people like me contribute to this money. Just imagine how much power union negotiators could have if they went in to negotiate with the boss and they go, our union's got a pretty big strike fund. We could hold out for a long time. You really want to fuck with this? Or, hey, we got on the phone to the AFL-CIO. They're ready to give us the money. Would you like to know what the strike fund's at? It's at however many millions, hopefully, right? You really think you're going to win this? That is leverage at the negotiating table. And when you have leverage at the negotiating table, you raise the wage for everyone, right? Even workers who are not represented by the union. The unions used to have a prevailing wage when they actually had power. We can kind of get that again. So, you know, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about, is like, hey, there's people being willing to fund your operations. Let's maybe take advantage of that. The other thing is, there was recently a story about Amazon having curriculum in a public school now. Like, they gave them $50,000 and they're like, hey, make a class for logistics experts or whatever. And it's literally has in the class like how to say no to unions and shit, and like basically how to work for Amazon. So it's teaching high school kids how to be a good employee for Amazon and how much to hate the union. And so I say AFL-CIO needs to answer this. So we need to do something like pro-union kids education. Okay, because you talk to young people now and they think, oh, the union just takes your dues and they don't do anything for you. You know, 80 years of losing will fucking earn that kind of reputation. So we need to start educating kids, you know, whether there's a pro-union summer camp, right? So anyone who's in the union should get a discounted rate, or if the local summer camp for your kids happens to have a pro-union education bit, that's good. I mean, it's not indoctrination. It's education. I don't know what to tell you. The right's doing it. We should do it too. Yeah. So exactly. Summer camp, or a little version of scouting, but it's pro-union or something. And they teach you labor history and skills for like joining a union later. and telling kids that it's okay to not work in a fucking office someday. You don't have to go get this kind of degree. You can be in a trade. You can be represented by a union. Shit like that. There's all kinds of suggestions that I think unions need to take. And to that end, I wanted to kind of close here with what can you do, the union supporter? Like, what can you do right now? So the things that I've got here are, you could consider a job with union representation. I know there's a lot of people who are listening who might be working retail or doing a job that they kind of took and they don't really like it that much, or for whatever reason, you could consider a union job. Like, always an option. Sometimes it can be very hard to get into unions. And that is a problem that I think unions need to address too, making it not so fucking difficult to get in, because they have bonkers ass requirements and weirdo shit, but they can address that too. But if you are looking for work, maybe consider a union job. You could also consider working directly for a union. Unions, just like any other organization, company, state agency, they need workers. They need people to do their paperwork and keep their books and all this shit. They have workers just like anybody else. And I feel like this is a problem where it's like, I'm always, oh, I'm looking for a new job, this or that. And it's like, have you put in an application at the local union? I don't know, fucking try it. They usually pay better than minimum wage. Whatever the case may be, you could work for a union. And I think that anybody who's listening to this show would be a fucking asset at a union. And to have more people like us getting into unions, even at a low level, and working our way up the ranks, probably a good thing to do. Because we all keep talking about how unions are going to play a big part in us moving in any potentially revolutionary direction. And time is of the essence, right? We're quickly running out of time. So if you're looking for work, I don't know, put in an application at a union, especially younger listeners or something. There's plenty of work to be done. They need negotiators. They need people to clean their spaces, whatever. You could go and work for you.
Send me a personal DM. I will try and get you into my union.
Yes. Send Brandon a DM, which you want to, I don't know, put out your Instagram or something. Or you could message us on Instagram.
Yeah, do that. But I'm G10 Junkman on Instagram. That's the only way to find me.
Yeah, ask around. Try and get into a union. Like, they need workers just like anyone else. And so anyone listening to this show would be fucking excellent to be in a union. It's very easy to overlook that option, but like, I'm hoping there's someone listening right now who's like considering changing jobs or something. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You can put in an application, try it out.
I don't know if you were going to get to this, maybe work for a union, maybe volunteer as a labor organizer, maybe even be a SALT. I've met a few people. If you have good interpersonal skills and you're good at speaking to fellow workers, you can be a SALT, which is basically you're getting a job in the aim of starting a union at that business. So you're getting a job there to talk to your coworkers to start a union. And even if you don't do that through official channels, you can just talk to your coworkers and try to start a union. You don't have to go through any like official channels or whatever. But like,
are there official channels for that? I'm not sure.
I'd have to ask someone, but I do know someone that was doing that helped organize the workers at Denver International Airport.
I mean, salting is how the Starbucks workers campaign got underway, pretty much.
Yeah, so there's a great option. Then, if none of those work, obviously not everyone's in a position to do that, or it doesn't work out for whatever reason. So I wanted to present some other options here. People tell you to like write your congressperson, but that doesn't do a goddamn thing, right? That doesn't do shit. Don't write your congressperson. It's pointless.
Wrong, your congressperson.
Much more effective.
I refuse to elaborate on what I said.
So instead, you could write to unions to show support for a real left agenda. I think more unions really ought to hear from people like us. So that end, I do have a few specific suggestions. Now, I want to be clear, no idea if this will work. No idea if this matters. I really don't know. But Congress people get a fuckload of emails and letters, and they have an automated system for ignoring it. It's literally built in. To my knowledge, nobody's writing union bosses and labor leaders. I don't think anybody's doing that. The liberals sure aren't. So fuck them. I say we should be making our voices heard because they're not listening to our podcasts. They're not seeing our memes. Much as I'd like to believe that they are, they're not. And so I think they have this perception that, oh, we just don't have power. Oh, we got to capitulate to the moderates and the conservatives. And I think they need to hear that, like, we exist and we're here to support you, but you need to fucking, one, do something, right? So all these suggestions that some idiot on a podcast or a bunch of idiots on a podcast just pulled out of our asses, and it's like, you mean to tell me after fucking how many goddamn decades you couldn't come up with any of this? Come on. So we should let them know that we have expectations. You need to represent fucking workers, and you need to do a better job. Maybe writing some letters to people to put some pressure on them. We might be able to push them left, because we're not pushing Democrats left. Please don't think that that's possible. But we can push labor left, I think. I don't know. But it is an actionable thing that you could do. And I also think it's especially good if you could send a letter through the mail, right? Put a stamp on an envelope. Because, like, I don't own stamps. I have not mailed something ever. But, like, for this, I promise by the time this episode comes out, I will own stamps. And I will put them on envelopes and put those envelopes into the fucking mail to union leaders to let them know that you need to do something and there is a support for a broader left agenda. I think that would be noticed if younger people especially would put stamps on letters to people. So for that, I've got here that the current president of the AFL-CIO, her name is Liz Schuler, and that's Lizshuler, and you can address letters to her at the AFL-CIO headquarters at 815 16th Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20006. Yeah, let her know how you feel about how unions have been going and what they could do to improve things. I would also highly recommend sending a letter or an email to the president of your state AFL-CIO office, as well as the branch office most local to you. So that may or may not be the same. But these are the people that need to see support for a left agenda, as well as understand that there are actually expectations that they fucking do something. We are suggesting real and tangible changes right now that they can get going with tomorrow. Literally tomorrow. We just need to put a little pressure on these people. If you like type in your state and Federation of Labor, you'll find out who that boss is, and you can send them a letter. Like, do some shit. Because I don't think they're getting too many letters from regular people. I really don't. I don't think that's a common thing. So hopefully worth a little something.
I mean, there are more effective things than letters, but letters can't hurt. So
yeah, yes. Well, let's be clear. There's definitely more effective things. But unfortunately, I find that, like, when you're not a union member and you're not like, I can't run for something in a union or whatever, you're like, okay, well, what can you do? Voting seems pointless, but like pushing labor left is probably a good thing, or at least a good start. There's also a couple specific people that you can send letters to. One of those people is Cooper Caraway, spelled Kooper. Caraway is Caraway. And in September 2020, he was elected president of the South Dakota Federation of Labor. At 29 years old, he became the youngest state labor federation president in the nation. The reason I know about him is because he showed up on Means Morning News, obviously explicitly socialist news show. And he talked about kind of what he was driving towards, and he definitely has a left agenda. Also, a very, very prominent poster of Fred Hampton right in his office behind him.
based.
Very based. So this is a based character, and I'm specifically saying write this guy. Or you can find his Instagram too, and his Twitter. Message the guy. Like, he's a cool fucking guy. He has a very clear left agenda, and he is rising through the ranks pretty quick and at a pretty young age. So, like, this is the kind of person who we need to, like, build some political capital for, and to, like, give some support to. Like, yeah, you're doing shit right. That gets power for this guy. And if this is the kind of guy that you can, he's already president of a state federation of labor. There are not too many places above that. This is someone who will actually fucking listen, right, to what you might have to say. And this is someone who can actually do something. So I do highly recommend sending him a letter. And you can mail letters to P.O. Box 1445, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, zip code 57101. He also does list his email, which is not common. Most of these people don't list their emails, but he does. It is kcaraway.com mark.aflcio@gmail.com. Yeah, send him a letter. I think he'll want to hear your suggestions because he's making some pretty big moves. Look into this guy. He's very cool. Also, if you're not bored yet, send letters to presidents of major unions and, those that are represented on the AFL-CIO Executive Council. The Executive Council is pretty much who governs the AFL-CIO besides the actual leader. And they do all the thinking, and these are the smoke-filled rooms where they make the, so far, bad decisions. They have made, for decades and decades, they have been making shitty decisions. So you can find who's on this Executive Council, and you can write to those unions and let them know, hey, we have some expectations for you fucking idiots to do something, because we've been losing for 80 fucking years. It's kind of about time we tried something different. So outside of those suggestions, I don't know, write or call any union leader in your area, whatever. They have to put up with hearing from us because they've been failing for a long time. And I think it's time that they actually listened a little bit to hey, bring back the flying squad. Do something for people like me who want to help you, but what are our options for helping you? They're not asking for help. They're not asking for money. They don't have to be communists. They don't have to be super radical, but come on, you have to want to win a little. We can't keep losing forever. And so to that end, join a union or go work for a union and let them know from inside that y'all are fucking blowing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. There's not much we can do, but whatever little bit we can do, let's do it. I think labor is going to be important for moving us in any potentially revolutionary direction. Yeah, that's all I got. That's the story of Walter Reuther and his successes, his failures, and I think we need to kind of sit on what we can take away from that study and what we can do to move forward. And however we can push, the AFL-CIO is a joke to me today. And so you get people this Cooper Caraway. He's a cool motherfucker. And I think that's the kind of a little bit of outside support would probably go a long way because most people couldn't name any other labor leader at all. So anyone who's got any kind of recognition or whatever can actually do something.
It's a really easy thing to say, but it can be difficult to do. Even within my own union, recognizing the people who are in power and being on a friendly basis with them, it can be a lot.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. It's just daunting at first.
Yeah, that's why I think just a simple, easy first step is reach out to these people and then look for what else you can do. We need to get them to, at the very least, create some kind of network for us to get involved. Because right now that doesn't exist. And that's, to me, fucking pathetic. I don't want to be an asshole and just harp on it, but it's okay, you can change that tomorrow. Literally
I don't want
tomorrow.
I disagree with you for a specific reason of I don't want to disparage the people who are trying and just getting involved. It's not pathetic. Sometimes it's just step one.
Oh, I'm talking about labor leaders. I'm not talking about regular fucking people. It ain't their fault. But you get a Liz Schuler, who's the president of the AFL-CIO. Why am I not able to get involved? You can't make a tab on your website? What are you doing? Come on. That's who I'm arguing against here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I think that's about as good a place as any to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So is there anything you guys want to plug other than your podcast? I think by now, anyone who's listening to this has checked out the Cars and Comrades podcast, I would hope by this point.
Anyone who's going to, yes.
Yeah. Mark and Phil, do you guys want to plug anything by any chance? I don't know if you guys have anything you're trying to promote or anything.
Take whatever car you have to autocross. It's fun.
Yes, 100%.
That's pretty cool. I agree with that.
I would say I'd like to plug friendship. Call your best friend and tell them you love them. Mark, I love you.
Yeah, I love you.
Oh,
That seems corny, but at the same time, I know some people that are struggling, and I'm sure that there's a few people that if you do that, they're going to appreciate it. So that's rad.
It can be corny and also very helpful. Mike, love you. And also all the rest of you guys in this net, love you guys too.
love you, Phil.
Thank
Love
you.
too. Thanks for joining us.
Love you guys. All right, with all the love going around, let me thank our Patreon subscribers really quick. So thank you as always to They're Better Than You, That's the Bear Jew. I love that. The Bear Jew.
Yeah.
Vincent, Nicholas Maduro, Caitlin, Gus, Kyle, Madman, Robert, Garden of Nurgle's Delights, Comrade Rev, Cosmic Crown, Michael, Van, Liquidated Bourgeoisie, Sigmund, Stuart, Pete Zaria, Colton, El Robert, Allison, Zach, Rave Enigma, Marvin, K. Rida, Not Drinking Water 69, A Second James, Mad Boy, Elam, Venture X, Jared, the Australian one, another Jared, Bill Killionaires, Bro Marks, David, Tristan, Devonte, Your Mother, Charlotte, James, Bishop Mew, Rural Marxist, John Bovey Fan 420, Kyle, Jean-Claude Manhands, Mail, Phil, the Phil, and Black.
What's me?
All right. Well, I think that's all I have, unless anybody else has anything. Yeah, just in general, thank
That's
you all
it,
for listening.
unless Walter comes back from the dead.
Yeah, right. Cool.
Yeah, sorry that was so long. I know that was
No,
a
it's
rough
no
one,
problem.
but
No, I
we're
was going to
done.
wrap it up just by saying, like, thank you for doing all that.
I apologize for nothing.
I can't tell you how much, Connor, I appreciate you doing all that work of like researching all of this and writing up all these notes and just running all these episodes, because it's nice. I really enjoy getting to just take a back seat and kind of sit here for story time. So thank you. I appreciate it, man.
yeah, it's the writing the notes that is like longest part of where I'm like, God, it takes longer
Yeah,
every time. I'm like, God, how does it take this fucking long?
Cool. All right. Well, it was fun. Can't wait to do another one. All right. Well, thanks,
Yep,
everybody. Thanks, Mark.
All
I
right.
appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks for
Later.
listening.
Good to meet you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Capitalism works, if it works at all, because it always has socialism to bail it out and to subsidize it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
In the 1980s, 50 corporations controlled most news media in America. By 1992, that number shrunk to 24. And today, only 6 corporations control 90% of everything Americans see, hear, and read. The money spent on the Iraq War alone, which killed 1 million people, 5% of Iraq's entire population, and planted the seeds for ISIS to flourish, could have covered all global investments to halt climate change trends.